Greetings, Vyrah reporting for duty. Another day, another day, another day. Another day. Let's do some React today. At least to begin the day. I've got some things that like I wanted to react for quite a while. Quite a while, meaning like a couple of weeks. And I got some things that I wanted to react just because. And basically, you're watching YouTube with me, and I'm telling you nonsense while we watch it. All right, that's the name of the show or the story or whatever the fuck you call it. First off, I want to react to a priori. Where is it? The greatest quest in vanilla. So there are like many quests in vanilla that are actually quite fucking good, and I'll give you one example. The quests to become a specialized to specialize your profession. I remember doing the quest to become specialized in blacksmithing and armor blacksmithing, and it took you all around the world, and it was like a lot of like traveling and just meeting new people and all this stuff. So, and there is like a couple like this, okay? There are like a couple quests like this, and it can be lore, it can be for a good weapon, it can be like there is like cool good stuff, good stuff all around. So let's check this out. I'm seeing like something cool that I might watch later. So let's check this out. It's from my boy Verigan, and yeah, I want to check this out because some lore is always like welcome. Let me just check if like everything is working and there's music and actually I'm not you're not watching like because it happened to me that, like there was like no sound or like that there was like sound but like problem is like too loud. So let me do just this check up this and then we can get into it. Where's my stream? Here it is. Nice. So everything is working out. So let's check this out, shall we? So the greatest quest in World of Warcraft. Can you believe that? You know what? It's actually like it's actually quite a solid claim. But there's a lot of quests in vanilla that were actually really quite the fucking like adventure, to be honest. So yeah, I'd say like that we're almost looking like no, some quest from Elden Ring, to be honest, without like all the fancy Elden Ring stuff, but going from place to place for like or Elder Scroll. Anyway.
Hello, I'm Haslam, and this is my new channel, Verigan. Verigan is a chance for me to do three things. One, to share the experiences I've had in video games that are special to me. Two, to examine the intricacies of game design that allowed these experiences. And three, to flex my own dormant creative muscles. For years now, I've really enjoyed listening to other people's stories on their own channels, and so I think it's finally time I tried to give back to that creative space. I wouldn't dare try to compete with the articulation that the big video essays have, or the detail that a lot of documentary videos do, or the assistance how-to guides would give, but instead to try and
Oh yeah, no. So doing like content creation allow me, especially like lore, something like that is related to lore content creation. These people, you don't see it. Is there such fucking monster? What the fuck? It's like they're eating books and fucking like, just like fucking cyber implanting the fucking lore of the game to fucking get you this fucking juicy fucking lore video. I have no clue where they get the time. I have no clue how the fuck they get to fucking like learn so much and actually put such a beautiful and just like easily understandable content even from for players that have not played the game. Like lore content creators, you think that like the people that are like sharks are like when it comes to like hardworking and just like when it comes to like their video quality are like the fucking big productions. No, it's the lore creator videos. Bro, like I watched like some lore video and then I'm like, I'm playing WoW, so there's a lot of lore that I can kind of cover, you know. Oh my fucking god, where the no no thank you. I'll enjoy my own fucking like watching lore videos. I'll never fucking try to write one because fuck you. It's so much work.
sit between the three of those genres and focus on the little things. This following story is perhaps my favourite in recent memory. It's also the namesake of this channel, so it had to come first, and I hope you like it. In the older versions of World of Warcraft, such as WoW Classic, every class had ability trainers. Abilities are fundamental to how you play the game, and you needed to visit a trainer often to upgrade and expand your character's skill set.
And most of the time, sometimes you didn't have enough money to fucking upgrade your competence, your skill. So you had to make a choice because everyone was broke back then, and you needed to come back every single fucking level to check out if there was something new. And actually, the game developers really made it well that like every new level you get a little something. Like if not every level, every two levels you got a little something to upgrade. The only problem is everyone broke, like, and it cost a lot to upgrade. But that was a fun time to kind of always come back. Now, remember when like for the retail players, for the five retail players left that are not like just AI controlled characters. Remember when the skills at ranks and you could choose some lower ranks because just to make it like more like mana efficient. Yeah, I remember that as well. Anyway,
Almost always, I played a human paladin, so my trainers of choice were occupied in the cathedral in Stormwind City, the capital of the Alliance. The jog through the city streets you're seeing now up to the cathedral steps became routine, and a welcome break between adventures. All players of all classes would have a ritual like this, and it helped populate the city streets as someone always had to go somewhere, and it fed into the wider illusion that the world felt alive. As you enter the nave of the cathedral, The 3 paladins that will teach you new abilities are on the left, but today's grand adventure doesn't come from them. It comes from this man in front of us, Dithorian Royal. We've just reached level 20, and so our mentor Dithorian believes we're ready for our next trial in our paladin training, the test of Valour. The autumnal region of Westfall has a critical bandit problem, and it's left innocent people isolated and defenceless. Jordan Stillwell, a man with ties to the church, has requested a visit to his home to check in on his wife, and as we are a paladin, the duty falls to us. As a level 20 human, we've already explored much of Westfall, and so we can take the flight service over to Sentinel Hill, where the local militia is quartered. The Stillwell Orchard is a quiet getaway far from here to the south, well nestled between the Dagger Hills and the Longshore. It really is quite hidden, not the place you'd simply stumble across, making it quite exclusive to paladins. I love the existence of hidden nooks like this. It makes me think of the many places unique to other players and their journeys. I'm never going to find every.
And there were many like places dedicated to within lost regions to class to certain class quests, or to certain, like, let's say weapon quest, or like let's say Sulfuras, or like Thunder Fury and stuff like that. Like there was like a lot of things like that where you just like, unless you've done the quest, or unless if you have not done the quest, you'll never go there. And this was a cool part of Vanilla WoW.
Everything this game world has to offer, making it feel less like a game and more like a world. Jordan's wife, Daphne Stillwell, might be a Scooby-Doo reference, though if so, I'm not sure I want to know what happened to Scooby. When we meet her, we find out she's already repelled several waves of the bandits that have come to take her land, and the next wave will be here any minute.
Charge!
Now, I must admit, my first ever attempt at that part got me killed a couple of times. I remember I had to get a friend to come over and help me out, but I got there in the end. Once the home invasion's over, we can then go talk to Daphne again, and she'll thank us for our service and tell her to go back to Dithorian and let him know that she's safe. So, upon returning to the cathedral and to Dithorian, we get thanked for our valour, and he rewards us for passing the test with a new spell and a new item. The new spell is called Sense Undead.
Yeah, and there were like some spells that you could not get unless you do the quest. And for example, like the Paladin Mount, I don't know, the Warlock Mount, but like these were also like quests, and long quest actually, still saving you the money compared to the 1,000 gold, but really, really cool quest. Just looking and feeling like this one, but high level, so more epic.
Which when cast will show all undead enemies as dots on the minimap. I'll be honest, I don't think I ever used this. The new item is called the Bastion of Stormwind. It's a big, shiny shield with quite impressive stats. If, like me, you prefer swinging around two-handed weapons instead, you can instead sell it for a nice bit of money, which will definitely help with upcoming repair costs, and there will be upcoming repair costs. So, we've completed the test of Valour, but Dithorian also tells us that someone should head to Ironforge and let Jordan know that his wife is safe. Us, he meant us. Thankfully though, it's not a very long journey, as the gnomes have built an underground tram line connecting the two cities. If you haven't played World of Warcraft before, you're probably surprised. Hundreds of hours in, frankly, even I haven't gotten used to it. Public transport can be quite...
There was a shark that you can look at in the fucking aquarium that always freaked me the fuck out in the fucking metro of Stormwind, to Stormwind and Ironforge.
Awful in real life, but in MMOs it can be different. I'm not an incredibly social person, so in online games it can take some time for me to coax myself out of my shell. But one of the first, if not the first, times I actually spoke to someone else in this game was right here, whilst sitting on a bench, waiting for the tram. And this happened simply because other people were here with me, and just like me, they had nothing to do but to sit and to wait. When multiple people boarded the tram together, they wouldn't always give small talk, but at the very least they'd give each other a wave, do a little dance, or inspect each other's gear. And all of this, no matter how small, was social interaction in this online space which wouldn't have happened otherwise, and there's something about that I really cherish. Sadly though, the Deep Run tram is one of the only forms of public transport in World of Warcraft, which really is a shame. The developers of Project Epoch, however, a private server currently in development, are working to correct this wrong, starting with carts that take players up and down the local road network surrounding Elwyn Forest. Oh look, we're here.
Oh, 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 oh.
Jordan is a blacksmith who prefers to do his work out in the cool mountain air, just outside of the city gates. He's relieved to hear that his wife is now safe, and deeply thankful that we came to her rescue. Feeling indebted to us, Jordan offers to craft us a new weapon, his greatest work to date, and a symbol of our paladinhood. The catch, though, is that he doesn't actually have the required materials, and he needs us to go get them for him. Jordan needs the following 4 items: whitestone oak lumber, a refined ore shipment, his old smithing hammer, and a purified core gem. The previous test of value
Purified core gem used to cost so much.
was merely to get us to this point, and the proper quest starts now. Jordan also gave us some notes on the whereabouts of each item. We'll start with looking for the refined ore shipment, as according to page 3 it should be the closest. Not far from Loch Madan, a large body of water up in the mountains not too far from here, is a settlement called Thelsamar. The local area is equivalent level-wise to Westfall, and on my first character I'd already been there for a short while to help out a friend of mine who played a dwarf hunter. Therefore, I already had the flight point unlocked, so we can just fly over from Ironforge. Jordan wants us to meet with an old blacksmithing friend of his, Baylor Stonehand. Baylor specialises in alloys, of which one would be perfect for our new weapon. Jordan has in fact already placed an order, but the shipment never arrived. When we arrive at his home, Baylor tells us that the ore never reached Thelsamar for refining. The caravan transporting the shipment was ambushed by the Mogrosh, a clan of ogres who terrorised the local dwarves from their stronghold to the northeast of Loch Madan. To get across to this stronghold, you'd perhaps be tempted to swim the distance. This can work, but as the water is infested with all sorts of nasty stuff, I don't really recommend it. You can instead take a detour north across the stone-wrought dam. It's much safer, and it provides a nice vista you really shouldn't miss out on. The Mogrosh ogres are elite enemies, marked by the gold border around their portrait. This means that an assault on their encampment cannot be done alone. Thankfully for us though, Thelsamar offers good bounty work for wiping them out, so there's often other players grouping up to attack the place together. Said groups could also make an excellent distraction as they plough through, allowing you to sneak in, get the shipment, and get out without taking a single scratch. As a footnote,
I used to have a friend that was like during my vanilla days that was like high level. Each time I had like an elite quest, he will show up like a fucking champion. His name was Gozer. Ah, what a legend, this man. What a legend.
I'd also like to highlight the lack of a highlight on the ore shipment. It's this wooden crate right here. Took me a couple of minutes to find first time around. So, shipment in hand, we can go back over the dam and back down to Thelsamar. Baylor is surprised of your return, but also elated. He somehow manages to refine the ore instantaneously, great for us, and hands it over. That's 1 item down, 3 to go. The next thing we need is a purified core gem, perhaps the most exotic item on the list. According to page 6, these gems can store magical energy, and to learn more we should consult with Thunderous Windweed.
Oh, it's a unique item. Basically, there was a gem that was the same icon looking, and it was expensive.
A night elf in Orbadine who'll know more. Unfortunately for us, Orbadine is on the other side of the planet. More specifically, it's in Darkshore, on the northwestern coast of Kalimdor, the game's other continent. Thankfully, despite the incredible distance, it won't take equally long for us to get there. This is because the main port taking passengers across the Great Sea is in the neighbouring zone, the wetlands, where the stone-wrought dam routes its water to. So, heading north out of Veltamar again, this time we'll stick to the road, follow it past the Algaz station, and further into Dun Algaz, a tunnel system that winds down the mountains. Something important I've until now neglected to mention is how travelling works in this game. Just after our
You walk basically, like, unless you have like you need to unlock all the travel points, and there wasn't like a way to cheat it. You need to get there and then you get there. But there was like some type of privilege to actually have all the travel points. It was actually like worth it, you know? Like, and you felt like there was like a satisfaction, for example, when it comes to gameplay, to actually go and travel around Azeroth and Kalimdor just to get the travel points for later in the game being able to access all the dungeons or all the raids without thinking too much about it. Because warlocks were rare, and warlocks that summons you the other side of the world, like, didn't happen as always, you know?
first battle in Westfall, I used my Hearthstone. You can bind your Hearthstone to any tavern and can then teleport back there, but only once an hour. So during the cooldown, you have to pay a flight master to fly you from settlement to settlement. If you've never spoken to a settlement's respective flight master though, you can't fly there, and so when in the lower levels like we are, it means you have to traverse this massive world primarily on foot. I'd also like to take a moment to point out how cool these tunnels are. It's common for game worlds to be tailored to the cultures populating them, as both were likely developed side by side, but it's nice to see where civilized infrastructure has had to properly tackle the terrain around it. It has this kind of novelty that I really appreciate. The other end of the tunnel
And it was really, really ahead of its time when it was released. So, I have to mention
system empties out into the flat wetlands beneath the mountains, and a long road is paved
when it comes to architecture, but also like this type of like logical architecture, I'd say, you know, in such a huge world.
between us and our destination, Menethil Harbour. Relative to where we've been before, it's a quite featureless journey, but it's a welcome change of scenery regardless. My first time here in the wetlands was actually a harrowing experience. When classic World of Warcraft launched, a friend of mine made a night elf character, and it fell to me to find him on the other continent and escort him all the way to Stormwind so we could level together. We were both level 5. Because of that night, the crocolisks that stalk this road will forever haunt me. Menethil Harbour is a little port town on the coast, and it has a couple of incredibly useful shipping lanes. The ship that docks on the left will take you to Theramore, a human settlement across the pond that's a good 15 levels out of our league, and the ship on the right takes us straight to Orbadine. Ships take a while to arrive, to depart, and they also take a while in transit, so there'd always be a few people along for the ride, just like with the Deep Run tram. Though the ships have added furniture, so you can either sit down and have a chat, or engage in activities. Oh look, landfall. Orbadine is a little port village in the same vein as Menethil Harbour, but it's a lot darker, has a lot less walls, and a lot more elves. Our contact, Thunderous Windweaver, is actually the village elder of Orbadine, and he remembers Jordan and so entrusts us with where the core gems can be found. The Black Fathom Deeps, a sunken temple along the coast to the south of here. He sends us on our way, but warns us not to go alone. And we really shouldn't. Black Fathom Deeps is actually a dungeon, a 5-person instanced experience that requires teamwork to complete. Back in the earlier versions of World of Warcraft, no matchmaking system existed for the game, so finding a group was something you had to do yourself. This usually would involve asking your guild, whispering other players you've met on your journeys, or shouting at the top of your lungs in the middle of Stormwind. The road south along the dark
The magic of vanilla WoW, classic WoW also, but vanilla WoW especially, is that like what he just said, well, that was working. And to do what? To do whatever fuck you want, to do dungeons, to do quests, to go somewhere to get PL to power level, so meaning like a high level come to just do your stuff. It worked to sell stuff, and this is something that like really was in a bubble, and in a time bubble, and it doesn't exist, or even if it exists now in WoW Classic, it doesn't have the same vibe to it, you know. Which is it's great, but like having participated in this, like when he says this, I can tell you it was such like we didn't knew back in the day, but that WoW will be so become so huge and so just like so great, right? So just mm, becomes so important when it comes to the video gaming history in general. But I was there with others, and yeah, what he says is true, and it was even more true when it was such a secluded place, and like, and especially when people didn't fucking knew what to do with the game, because like now you have all your guides and everything. How can they fuck you, bro? Like you read the quest, you cannot you don't understand. Well, give up. That was the logic, all right? And it wasn't like until the Burning Crusade that Quest Helper got like released. Maybe it was earlier. Well, like back in the day, like even for questing, you will need to ask other people where the fuck you're supposed to go. But you know what was like really magical is that no one gave a fuck that like they got asked for like all the reasons that I just mentioned, and people helped each other, and it was great.
Darkshore is quite a long one, but really quite safe for someone of our level. The final part of this jog, however, when we enter the next zone, Ashenvale, is contested territory. This means that the other faction of the game, the Horde, also have quests here, and so are allowed to attack you, and you them, and they want to visit the Blackfathom Deeps just as much as you do. Sadly, on my first character, I followed this road all the way around, met a group of Horde, and got murdered several times, but I later found out that there's a couple of extra ways the Alliance can get there that are far safer. Like several of Classic WoW's dungeons, Blackfathom Deeps is a really cool entrance that you have to descend down into. The Naga that drop the core gems can actually be found on the outside of the instance as well as the inside, so technically you don't have to do the dungeon, but you've crossed continents to get here, so you may as well make the most of it. As a human character, you typically have absolutely no reason to be so incredibly far from home, which is why I'm a big fan of quests like this that take you on globe-trotting adventures. You're sufficiently encouraged to play through the game's content, despite it being stretched over such a huge surface area.
And what's interesting as well as back in the day, like as someone globetrotting, as someone traveling through these zones that they didn't need it, is to kind of like discover this new region and being like, so this is a orc region with orc quests, with an ord region with horde quests, and that is basically useless for me. But like where other people leveled the same way, and because you see the level of the fucking like mobs in here, right, the monsters, the level of the monsters, and basically like with that you were able to kind of like judge what was like their quest zone compared to yours, and just discover that like it fucking exists, right? Because back in the day, hey, you was just watching the map and telling yourself, yeah, this is I know what it is. Nah, you didn't knew everything was so like so just like mysterious and just magical, you know?
The feeling of arriving at new shores for the first time is pure magic, and the entirely unscripted manner in which it's done makes it all the more authentic. The opening sequence of the modern Dragonflight expansion I recently experienced was great, don't get me wrong, but looking back, I won't remember that. I will remember this. The Blackfathom Deeps is an intense, half underground, half underwater encounter, but frankly has no real relation to this story, so moving on. Once the dragon has been conquered. Dragon? Once the dungeon has been conquered, we can take the road back up north to Orbadine. Thunderous will tell us we've got the right kind of gem, though the evil magics of its previous owner have corrupted it. Not to worry though, Thunderous will instantaneously purify it for us. That's 2 items down, 2 to go.
And there's also something else. You tell yourself, yeah, so much effort, right? Just for a fucking mace, right? It's not worth it. Well, that's the magic of fucking vanilla WoW, classic WoW. It was really worth it, actually, worth the time. It was worth the time, worth the investment, like the investment, actually. And that was like really like well thought out. And on top of that, you had like this unique adventure that you do not forget, you know.
Let's head back to the Eastern Kingdoms. The natural thing to do in our position is to use our Hearthstone. Its cooldown has probably ended by now, and we're ready to go home. But for our third item, Jordan's old smithing hammer, taking the ship back is actually the quicker route. Pages 4 and 5 of Jordan's notes talk about his hammer, which he left behind when he and his wife fled from their old home during the Scourge invasion. The Scourge was essentially a zombie apocalypse, and it wiped out most of the human population during the events of Warcraft 3, a few years before World of Warcraft takes place. Jordan used to live in Pyrewood, a village that was once a part of the Kingdom of Gilneas. Most of Gilneas was sealed off from the invasion, but the southern parts of the Silverpine Forest didn't make the cut. He trained under his father as a blacksmith in the keep, lumbering over the settlement, so that's where he would have left his hammer behind. But as with our previous journey, the issue isn't so much what we're doing, but where we're going. The Silverpine Forest is far to the north of the wetlands, and it's incredibly dangerous, with most of the human territories having been claimed by the Forsaken, the undead faction within the Horde. The following journey is the pivotal point of this questline. If a paladin were to quit, it would probably be here. This is because the long journey to Silverpine must not only be taken on foot, but it must be taken through very dangerous areas, and it must be done with a group, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, and when he says very dangerous areas, he didn't fucking like lied about it. Like there were areas like during Vanilla WoW, where it was like just a destination as a horde player or as an alliance player where you simply don't go. Do you know why? Too dangerous. And this actually made the world like so alive and so like lifelike, you know, because like some zones as an adventurer, no, you don't go there. What's even for a special opportunity? Well, you bring a little fucking army, you bring your little group, or else you don't fucking go there. Why? Because you'll get fucked up. And that was most of the, and there were like multiple zones like this.
The time investment involved in simply getting to the hammer can be a filter, so let's not waste any more time. When first travelling across the long, muddy road towards Menethil Harbour, we came to a crossroads and kept going forward, but this time we're taking the path northward. Most open world games, massively multiplayer or otherwise, would provide for you a mount for journeys like this, and World of Warcraft does, but not for a lowly level 20-something like us. You need to train your riding skill to use mounts in this game, and that can only be done at level 40. Not to mention, both the training and the mount itself are incredibly expensive. In fact, if you didn't know you needed to, it's likely you wouldn't have saved up enough gold. The second tier of mounts available at level 60 were considerably faster, but the cost for these were simply insane, and in the earlier stages of the game they were quite the status symbol. The high requirements make the first time you saddle up in World of Warcraft feel absolutely amazing, but
Oh yeah, you felt like a king walking around with your fucking mount, bro. Especially the 100, the epic mount at 60, bro. Like you knew who the fuck was a player and who the fuck was slacking, you
until
know?
that day comes, we're stuck to trudging along on foot. It won't be too long before we reach the Thandal Span, one of the great wonders of this world. But unfortunately, it really has seen better days, so be careful where you step, and don't look down. The span takes us into a place called the Arathi Highlands, an ancient human land that has since become infested with all sorts of awful stuff like elementals, ogres, trolls, the Horde, and even dinosaurs. This area is for players from levels 30 to 40, and so it's way out of our league and incredibly dangerous. We're entirely helpless if any of the monsters along the road decide to attack us, but still, let's push on. Successfully evading dinosaurs and enemy players, we can reach Refuge Point, a secluded safe haven.
Or even like when it comes to medieval fantasy, so basically rounds, if you study like the medieval world a little bit, roads were actually fucking important. Do you know why? Because you don't get fucked by the wildlife if you follow the roads. And actually, well, in WoW, it was also something that I noticed back in the day that like how important these routes were, because well, there is no fucking like negotiating, going straight ahead like we do now, rather than taking the route, because the route actually kept you safe, just like it did in medieval times, just like it did in like heroic fantasy, like just like it does in heroic fantasy. So this is really cool, like you don't get out of this door, you don't go further for too far from the road, because it's fucking dangerous.
For the Alliance and unlock its flight point. After taking a bit of a break to de-stress, we can finally get back out onto the road again, heading west. The big structure coming up on the left looks like it might be safe, but it's actually full of elite bandits, so if you're being attacked, don't go in there, things will just get worse. Eventually we hit a wall. Hopefully not a metaphorical one, but a physical one, a really big wall. This is Thoradin's wall, an equivalent to our Hadrian's wall, and though it's seen better days, it's still up there with the Thandal Span as one of the coolest structures in the game. Passing through the wall's huge gatehouse, we enter the Hillsbrad foothills, a beautiful land, much more appropriate for our level. But the verdant landscape is just a disguise for the deadly battleground it actually is. Hillsbrad is one of the areas where the Alliance and the Horde first meet, and ultimately come to blows. It's arguably the birthplace of world PvP in World of Warcraft, and for that reason we need to be just as careful as we were in the Arathi Highlands. South Shore, a nice little town on the coast, is the new frontier of humanity, and it's relatively safe, so we should head there and get the flight point. The Hillsbrad foothills is one of my favourite places in the game, and is important for a lot of reasons, of which many are explored when you go back in time to visit it in the game's first expansion. But the video is already quite long, and that would be too much of a tangent, so moving on.
Yeah, let me do this tangent instead of him, because the video is already quite long, and it will be too long to explain. Now I say I won't do it, but like no, because my video is also quite long, so might as well fucking do the joke.
Exploring South Shore, we can hit the road again and keep heading west, until eventually reaching the border to the Silver Pine Forest. The greens become noticeably darker and the atmosphere altogether spookier, and this is a clear indicator that we're entering the lands of the undead. Silver Pine is an early leveling zone for undead characters, a direct equivalent to Westfall, and so it's...
Let me just check. I have like PTSD because my... Okay. Everything's fine. Let's keep going with the adventure.
marked officially as Horde territory. This means that enemy players can't be attacked, but we still can be. Our best hope is to follow the road all the way to Pywood Village, and if we pass any Horde players, give them a polite wave, but don't stop running, no matter what. The place where Jordan left his hammer has since become an evil, tainted place, now known as Shadowfang Keep. Just like the Black Fathom Deeps, it's a dungeon instance, only this time the item we need is quite deep in, so we definitely shouldn't be alone. A great place to recuperate and repair our gear though is in Pywood Village, just down the hill. But be careful, the villagers are pleasant enough during the day, but during the night you see another, far less cooperative side too. Sadly, I've rarely seen this village in its daytime state, as the server time in this game is tied to real time, and I'd often play games in the evening. Regardless, I find stuff like this really cool, and I don't remember seeing anything similar in other games. What would be a normal levelling zone for one half of the player base is a useful, if not time-limited hub for the other, and attaching significant things to the day-night cycle of the game in general is really cool. Partially related is a nearby merchant called Wallace the Blind, who is at the sealed entrance to the rest of Gilneas.
Yeah, basically Gilneas is actually the capital of the Worgans, and the Worgans, they are actually like werewolves. Like, technically they can morph whenever the fuck they want by now, but like back in the day, yeah, typical werewolf. So you come by the day, no furies. You come by during the night, oh, everyone is a fury for some reason. Nah, if you come from like if you come from like anime conventions, you will understand why the fuck there's so many furies during the night in here. But like, if you don't, and if you don't know what a fury is, you probably are still blessed by God, and you still have some fucking like hope for humanity left.
He sells
Hey
some
there.
interesting items, including a really nice sword, and will only trade with members of the Alliance, who, as you've seen, really have no business being here at all. NPCs like Wallace are the nice hidden details that really fill out the world and add novelty. Gameplay wise, there is absolutely no reason for him to be here, but
And it's interesting that like Gilneas Worgens were introduced in fuck you, I don't remember the expansion, but Gilneas is the capital of Worgens if I am correct. But it was already there in Vanilla WoW, so really like, and they didn't lost this asset to actually like fucking like they made it something that became like quite the fucking fun, you know, like quite the fucking cool story.
he is, and I think the game's better off for it. Up the snaking path, we pass the meeting stone. I keep stopping, but I want to talk about the meeting stone before going in. These stones were actually the game's first looking for group tool. Simply interacting with a dungeon's associated stone would put you in a group with other players that did the same thing. They later added the ability to search for a group for any dungeon at Innkeepers, though this wouldn't actually teleport you to the dungeon, so nobody used it, and by the game's first expansion, the entire mechanic was completely revamped. Crossing over the drawbridge.
Yeah, there was this logic of like certain dungeons that were so fucking far away. It's just like, yeah, bro, that's good. We fucking finally the fucking team. Let's get to the dungeon. And then everyone had to like passionately like fucking took the fucking 45 minutes to get to the dungeon, and no one gave a fuck or like actually made remarks about it. It was just a norm, you know.
Bridge and into the instance, we quickly find that the keep has been appropriately named, having been infested by both shadows and fangs. The place has been taken over by a mad mage called Arugal, who's turned everyone into rabid worguns, World of Warcraft stand-in for werewolves. Jordan's hammer is at the far end of the courtyard, but the metal gate barring the way is firmly closed, so we'll have to go this way instead. A short time later, we hit the locked door to the courtyard, and just down the stairs is the person with the key. This seems to be the keep jail, and all 3 cells are occupied. Horde players need to free the person on the right, Alliance the person in the middle, and in the leftmost cell is the blacksmith Landon Stillwell. Added to the game during the Burning Crusade expansion, alongside Blood Elf Paladins, he is needed for their quest to forge their powerful weapon, mirroring our adventures. Landon's relation to Jordan is unknown, but as he is also a blacksmith and is a bit more grey, they're probably father and son, but that's never explored. Tangentially, there is actually one other Stillwell in the game, Marissa. She lives in either Northshire Abbey or Goldshire, depending on the version of the game, and will provide owners of the World of Warcraft Collector's Edition with their free pet. Opening the middle cell, we can free Sorcerer Ashcrom. He was sent by the other wizards to check up on Arugal, not knowing that he'd since gone mental.
Careful.
He goes over to the locked door, unlocks it with his magic, and here we are, the courtyard. After the slow process of clearing it of all the enemies, we can go over to the stables, and lying on top of a crate is Jordan's hammer. That's 3 items down, on to go.
And just as a reminder, so the dude he explained to you for he fast forward the whole quest. This is one random dude, and like to kind of put you back in the experience that we had in vanilla and that some people enjoy in classic. Like, you go back to fucking Stormwind, you see this quest, and that's your life for like a couple days, you know? The one fucking adventure. And this is what like really made like World of Warcraft Classic Vanilla shine back in the day. Because it was like because this happened more than often. That like you just find this quest and you're fucked with it for like a couple days, if not a week, and best time of your life, you know. And it happened multiple times for like to every classes in at pretty much any range, any level range.
Shadowfang Keep is one of my favourite dungeons though, and it's worth seeing through to the end. On I think my second ever run of the dungeon, an Assassin's Blade dropped, and I won it. If I recall correctly, this is the best in-slot weapon for rogues wanting to do the PvP battlegrounds in this level bracket, and because of this I managed to sell it on the auction house for well over 100 gold, which at this level felt like winning the lottery. Also, the final boss drops some really good caster gear, and the robes are incredibly stylish. I can imagine a 12-year-old back in 2004 dropping their jaw in awe after seeing a player wearing it in Stormwind. Okay, so that's the longest journey of the entire quest done. There's nowhere we're heading back on foot, so let's Hearthstone back. The final item Jordan needs is some whitestone oak lumber, which he tells us about back on page 2. The whitestone oak is a rare and exotic tree, and its wood is known for its strength, so Jordan thinks a good handle could be made for our weapon. This step in the quest is typically the first step you'd actually take, not the last, but I saved it for last because it'll take us all the way back to Westfall, and it's always more poetic when things end close to where they started. The whitestone oak's resilience makes it very useful as supports for mine shafts, and Jordan happens to know that the dead mines had a large amount stocked when they were operational. With any luck, there should be some left for us. Landing in Westfall again, this time we're off to Moonbrook, an old bandit-ridden town, and into the Dead Mines secret entrance at the back. The Dead Mines is yet another 5-person dungeon, but after returning from our world-spanning adventures, we're powerful enough to not need a proper group, and can probably get by with just the help of a friend or two. The mines can prove a bit of a maze for newer players, and even getting to the instance caused me a bit of grief initially. I'd elaborate more on the story of this place, but at our level, we'd have been here before several times already, and this video is already quite a lot longer than intended. Eventually, we reach a big door. On the other side of the door is the big chamber where the lumber is stored, and guarding it is a group of goblin woodcarvers, led by their mech-mounted boss, Sneed. Once the room is cleared and Sneed is dead, we can loot one of the lesser goblins and get our final item, the whitestone oak lumber. That's 4 items down and none to go. Let's get out of here. So that's all 4 items in our inventory. We fought through mines, keeps, ogre strongholds, ancient temples, rode on trams, walked through mountains, trudged along wetlands and tiptoed through highlands. We've been across a loch, across a continent, to a different continent, underneath both of them, and back again, being chased by bandits, ogres, crocolisks.
Yeah, and by the way, so what's also important is that like see the mechs that it talks about didn't got replaced like it didn't got replaced for at least like 5 to 10 levels. That's also why it was like there was like a good reason and legitimate reason to actually go for these quests because after that like there is no better thing that like you can get for quite a long time, and you get and this way this is why like you got attached to some items even though they were like random blue, random greens, you know.
Worgans, Naga, ghosts, goblins, dinosaurs.
Who doesn't fucking remember the fucking like carrot trinket that you got in the zone next to Tenares? It was the first trinket ever that you ever get, technically. You can get one earlier, probably, but like from a quest. This was like the first trinket ever you can get from a quest. It was like a trinket that like makes your mount go a little faster. Like, who doesn't remember that? It was a carrot on the stick or something like that.
And now we're here at the final stretch. After taking the 4 items to Jordan, he doesn't waste much time before getting to work on the hammer. Oh wow, that didn't take long. He hands you your new weapon, Verrigan's Fist, named after a late friend of his, a dwarf paladin called Bosch Verrigan. Statistically, it really is quite a nice weapon. It's got a nice amount of stamina, a lot of magical stat increases, and a really hefty amount of base damage.
And compared to like a lot of weapons back in the day during leveling, this was a really cool looking weapon as well.
Paladins usually won't find a replacement for this weapon for at least 10 levels, and the damage upgrade in using it is very, very noticeable. Sadly for me, as a Retribution Paladin, there's no strength or agility on it, but I'm just splitting hairs, and as everyone has said at some point in their life, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Or is it? It's about the journey, not the destination. One of those two. Why is this quest the greatest in World of Warcraft Classic, in my opinion?
It's about neither of those. It's about waifus. Like, no one understood that. Like, it's fine, but like, it's not about neither. The answer is it's all about
As
waifus.
much as I do enjoy the narrative frame of getting a big hammer, the aforementioned journey is why. It makes a perfect showcase of everything I love about this game. Azeroth is a huge fantasy world that you can share with thousands of other people in real time. It doesn't really ask you to explore it, but instead subtly nudges you into wanting to. The two continents have a collection of incredibly diverse environments, and despite the game's maintained popularity for nearly 20 years, the world is still full of hidden corners and details that will make your journey feel unique. The game will let you fly solo, but even people like me who traditionally play single-player games are drawn into its communities through exposure to other people. You even share downtime together, and it puts everyone on the same approachable level, a level from which you can then build relationships with other people, maybe even join a guild, learn more about the game, and even go on raids together. And even if you don't want to talk to anyone, the knowledge that everyone you pass on the streets of Stormwind is a real person on their own unique journey just like you is so special. Verrigan's fist may just be a hammer, but the path to getting it is a path through everything brilliant about this game. And when you see its distinctive
I absolutely agree. This and also like as I always tend to fucking try to remind you because like people watch these fucking like crazy technical or like really crazy specific lore videos tend to forget that they're not the average the average game player Andy. As they're not the average player, right? And this is an average player telling you about like the experiences that you get to fucking enjoy. It's not you, the dude that fucking does Mythic plus 13, that is concerned for that. So don't stop fucking hating on this fucking content. Doesn't concern you. Okay? If you like it though, it's fine. But like remember, these are not like people who do Mythic plus 13, okay?
symbol on the backs of other paladins.
That's why when you ask, what? Yeah, I tried. I didn't enjoy it because you do Mythic plus 13, bro. Your keys are fucked up, bro. Like you're not the same fucking type of beast, all right?
You know that they know that too. So there it was, my first video. Though I only properly discovered World of Warcraft relatively recently in my life, it's one of the best games I've ever played, and it's let me meet many new people,
Mas não
some of
lembro.
which are still my close friends to this day. This isn't to say that World of Warcraft is a focus of Verrigan though. I already have a few ideas for small details I can obsess over from all different sorts of games. Besides, if you want to hear more stories coming from this game, the channel Mad Season show more than had you covered. He was a big inspiration. And if you want to hear about the grandest quest in World of Warcraft, look no further than Barney64's Scarab Lord Adventures. I'll put a link to both of those channels in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, and if you'd be more interested in seeing more videos like this on Verrigan, you can subscribe. Comments are also very much appreciated, as is any feedback you can give me, because frankly, I've got no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's, don't worry, it's the same with every fucking content creators. Subscribe to this guy. This is a great video. Like this is this is actually quite a fucking like good video, and I'll actually take the recommendation. Where the fuck is it? Where the fuck is it? I'll take the fucking video recommendation. Okay.
When we
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, was it good? It was great. This is like, so there are like many quests like this that exist in WoW. There is like also like the hunter quest where like you actually have to do like to kill an elite without your pet and without using like really having a restricted set of skills. This is high level for like a epic fucking like staff that is like really fucking powerful. There's also like the mounts. There's also like Like there's also like a couple other quests, like some quests were just like bound to how is it called, just like to get a spell. Some spells were so powerful that actually you need to fucking get out and get to fucking like get to fucking working to fucking get these quests, get the spell learned. And this was like actually really interesting. So yeah, thank you so much very again for this video. This was actually quite a fucking like blessed video. So yeah, wish the best, bro, on your WoW journey. Anyway, okay, next we have, I don't think that like I have like too much stuff. Mm, actually I have like I have like quite some stuff, but like all over the blah 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 blah. This one is actually quite interesting. It's called Bring Back Dark Fantasy, you cowards. Like actually I'm actually curious because Dark Fantasy became like a trend because
What
of
happened to the
Dark Fantasy became like quite trendy on TikTok because of like the dark dark fantasy YouTube thing. Where is it? I'll if you heard the song, you know what I'm talking about. Like because like dark fantasy become like quite fucking trendy because of one fucking song, and this fucking song is quite fucking legit. Let's listen to that. Bro, if you watch TikToks, bro, like I just remembered you of a trend that you forgot that you forgot existed. So yeah, like dark fantasy is kind of nice, mega nice actually. Like especially like the fucking AI stuff. It's a shame that like there isn't more on YouTube, but like I'll try to fucking pick some that are really like crazy fucking cool looking, and I'll try to fucking react to that and share it to you.
fantasy genre? If you're active on social media, then chances
Okay, I'm actually not listening. I'm actually saving more stuff. Yeah, okay.
are you've come to. What happened to the fantasy genre? If you're active on social media, then chances are you've come across a certain type
So this is exactly the TikToks. Basically, you heard the song, you forgot the song. Basically, it's always the same song, and to fucking do stuff like this using AI is absolutely
of
unbelievable.
AI generated video with soft lighting, mystical settings, eerie music, unnaturally beautiful people, and an overall vibe that feels like it came straight out of a dream.
And fucking Shrek, bro. Fucking Shrek, bro.
Or maybe a nightmare? These videos, which are often referred to as dark fantasy, aren't just another TikTok trend. They point to this growing sentiment that Hollywood doesn't seem to have picked up on yet, that audiences are desperate for real movie magic. Historically, during periods of hardship, movie theaters have served as a much needed escape. I mean, they practically got us through the Great Depression. And I'd argue that now more than ever, people need stories that can help them forget their troubles and woes.
Yeah. I agree with that. Can you fucking stop making movies about the world being destroyed every time? I'm talking to you, Century Fox and Universal. Fuck you. Like, can you do like movies where it's like where the fate of the world is not about like the fucking change or something like that? Thank you. That was like from the committee of from the group of people that actually are scared of this fucking thing happening, knowing that some people can make it happen because they're stupid, and actually quite relate to the fact that like yeah, it's kind of depressing overall, to be honest. So yeah, if you can do less fucking world shattering world like world whatever fuck is about to be destroyed movies, I will be thankful. Like, just because, oh my fucking god, all depressing and how overdone can this trope can be. Let me just like rewatch like some fucking dark fantasy where like the worst thing that can happen is that the knight can die, or the hero can die, or the princess is just like never found, and that's it. And not the fucking like the whole, we went from like the, oh yeah, so the world is in peril. No, it's the galaxy. No, it's the reality. No, it's fuck you. It's like all dimensions at the same time, and and also also in the past, the past timelines. And it's like, bro, like at this point, it's like you try to fucking you try to fucking prove something that like I don't fucking know what it is, but like it became like really quite the fucking like lame fucking story, especially with like when you get a second movie, it's even worse. You thought that the fate of world wasn't enough of a stake, wasn't enough of a fucking like a problem for the heroes to solve. Now it's not one world, it's three worlds, and actually there's this fucked up guy, and this fucked up guy he actually like destroyed something important. So the hero shut the fuck up, make a movie about like I don't fucking know, being nice to dogs and like doing ecology for fuck's sake.
Like every aspect of pop culture, the film industry is deeply influenced by the world around us, with different genres rising and falling in popularity depending on the social and political climate. And fantasy
Or dark fantasy. Do dark fantasy. Thank you.
is no exception. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the evolution of fantasy in film, including the genre's most notable examples, the historical circumstances that influenced its direction, key characteristics that made it unique, and the way that audiences' enduring love for magic, myths, and make-believe have kept it alive. Let's get into it. Hollywood has been dipping its toes in the fantasy realm since the inception of film, but because of the technological limitations of the era, it was never able to surpass action-adventure stories or romantic comedies in terms of popularity. In the 1930s, movies featuring monstrous characters like Dracula, King Kong, and Frankenstein were all the rage, signifying a greater acceptance and interest in these sorts of fictional stories.
And this was actually quite revolutionary. So remember King Kong actually, or like Godzilla? They're not like canned sized monsters. And basically, they needed to create a new technology using basically figurines, and a certain perspective lens that will actually like they will put like Godzilla next to the fucking like real city, the figurine of Godzilla, and move it realistically for it to be the size of the city in these movies. It goes as like some cities in Lord of the Rings actually do not, well, actually do not exist. Can you believe that like the cities from Lord of the Rings do not exist? Yeah, no, right. Fucking like tragic. I'm sorry to tell you, to share you the news. Like, I know that like no one knows, but like basically some of the cities like in Lord of the Rings, they were like based like not 3D rendered, but based on maquettes. Maquettes like basically like they were like small. They were like how the fuck is let me just check the word uh mm, so yeah, they were just like models, mock-ups. There were mock-ups, but like small size mock-ups of whatever the fuck of the city or like the monster that were like that you basically like so check this camera. So that what they will do basically like this with the, so you see like this was the mock-up, right? But they will do basically this with the camera. And it's like, oh, look at this fucking can. Actually, the can was so fucking big. Ah, no, not the can. You know, basically, that was like, this is how the cinema actually used to fucking function. It's stupid. It sounds like silly, you know, but like, this is actually, and it was well done. It was like a category of like artistry when it comes to cinema back in the day, and even now. when it comes to certain like creating certain like landscapes such as cities or like just like impossible cities or impossible like mostly cities, I'm guessing these days.
But because of the Great Depression, which ushered in an era of uncertainty, lighthearted fantasy remained a rare sight until the end of the decade. Two of the earliest examples were 1937's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and 1939's The Wizard of Oz, which wound up becoming some of the most popular and influential films of all time. But considering their incredibly high production values, studios weren't fully sold on the idea of fantasy. The 1940s started off with a bang with The Thief of Baghdad and Fantasia, and with their breathtaking visuals and surreal artistry, these fantasy films helped create a lasting association between magic and color. Although there was clearly demand for these sorts of fantasy films, World War II put a screeching halt to the development of the genre, with the color process being deemed too costly and the subject matter inappropriate considering the political climate. This eventually led to the rise of the black and white film noir genre instead, which appeared
Yeah, it's pretty fucking legitimate during the Second World War to maybe not fucking like talk about like fairy tales when everyone's fucking scared of the end of the world, you know? Like actually the world being like shaked. But it's interesting. I didn't know that like the noir genre actually came from the Second World War era. I actually love the noir genre. Noir genre basically is a really serious type, like really mundane, so day-to-day slice of life if you watch anime, so really like realistic type of movies and TV shows that were like based on reality without like any fantastic part to it, to be honest. Like there wasn't like anything fantastical magical in it. It was basically just like it was basically just like your rom-coms and stuff, but darker. It was a noir, the noir type of feel. Movies were like more like fatalist, like sad, like and they were like using like basically like interesting themselves in subjects of society and basically or philosophy or like whatever fuck you call a subject, right? And we're like actually like serious and in a really reserved, not reserved, but kind of like really kind of shy way, you know, like not in this in your face trying to fucking sell you stuff because it's a dark story. No, really in the shy, reserved, kind of timid way, you know. And this made this type of art really like unbelievable, and you can even see that like some art the film noir actually what was it called, Bioshock actually takes a lot from that, for example, and the vintage, the steampunk actually takes from the film noir, you know.
appealed to the cynical mindset that had emerged because of the war. After the war ended, fantasy films were pushed into production as a celebration that the worst was over, and throughout the 1950s and 60s, Hollywood released an assortment of movies inspired by ancient myths, folk tales, legends, and fairy tales like Sinbad the Sailor, The Tales of Hoffmann, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, Arabian Nights, Hercules, Babes in Toyland, The Glass Slipper, The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm, and Sleeping Beauty. Legendary child actress Shirley Temple even hosted a popular TV series focused on different fairy tales, proving that the American public's fondness for these sorts of stories wasn't a fluke. In the aftermath of World War II, the United States and the USSR began to battle over their respective ideologies, resulting in the Cold War. This divided the two superpowers' allies into separate camps, the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc, with the countries in the latter being restricted by censors and communist guidelines. There was a big emphasis to resist American ideologies and remain true to their own traditions, and with foreign films often being banned entirely, there was a resurgence in classic folktales and legends. These fantasy films would often have an undercurrent of communist messaging, with the storylines featuring a greedy and egotistical villain who makes the lives of others miserable, only to be defeated by a selfless hero who has an endless love and respect for their homeland and family.
Yeah, basically it was like a capitalist bad guy each time. Like there was a lot of that. But back in the day, it was so that people were not like fucking like super prodigies with like basically a fucking master degree and fuck you, and I know it from YouTube or I know it from the internet type of like logic. People used to be like really innocent when it comes to knowledge, and we tend to forget as like historians as well. People tend to forget how people were just like more innocent, you know, back in the day, and it doesn't mean that they were stupid. It just means that like they were like more innocent, and they didn't knew as much, and because of that, like this type of like movies where you're like it's actually fucking stupid watching that. Well, it wasn't stupid for these people because it didn't add um this like never-ending stream of like information that they can access from like a smartphone, basically. Makes a world of difference.
This included the likes of The Princess with the Golden Star, The Tale of Sar Sultan, There Was Once a King, Snow White and Rose Red, Kingdom in the Clouds, and Jack Frost. Fantasy films in both the Eastern and Western Bloc had similar visuals at this time, with colorful scenery, elaborate sets, fun costuming, angelic-looking protagonists, and entertaining musical numbers, which created an overall magical look. These films also featured many staples of the fantasy genre, including knights in shining armor, wicked stepmothers, foolish kings, animal transformations, beautiful but mistreated maidens, and a morally ambiguous magical entity who would set the story in motion. For most of the 1940s, well into the 1960s, the Motion Picture Production Code, aka the Hays Code, had dictated what sorts of films were allowed to be made in Hollywood, with everything from the story to the actors to the visuals having to follow these guidelines. This is what led to the popularity of the rom-com and musical during that time period, as they were one of the few genres guaranteed to make it through the censor every single time. With the Hays Code finally being abolished in the 1970s, filmmakers were allowed to take greater risks, and in contrast to the glitz and glamour of prior decades, films went in a gritty and pessimistic direction influenced by the Vietnam War. The sort of theatricality that had defined old Hollywood, like musical numbers and technicolor and transatlantic accents, were seen as old-fashioned, and as a result the fantasy genre fell by the wayside in favor of family dramas, crime thrillers, and gory horror. In Europe, however, fantasy films continued to thrive, in large part because the political turmoil of the 1970s had resulted in people yearning for a simpler time. Many filmmakers began turning to the fairy tales that had brought them joy in their youth, like Donkey Skin, Beauty and the Beast, Three Wishes for Cinderella, and The Adventures of Pinocchio, which took visual cues from earlier decades. With many countries in the Eastern Bloc attempting uprisings, but failing, these fantasy films featured less communist propaganda than they had in earlier years, highlighting their discontent with Soviet control and their hope to someday have a happily ever after. The Conan the Barbarian comic series had grown in popularity over the course of the 1970s, and by the 1980s, several knockoffs had spawned, including The First Kingdom, Dagar the Invincible, Beowulf Dragonslayer, Warlord.
So when it comes to Conan the Barbarian, like I never understood how the fuck. So I understand that the stories can be interesting. Never understood how the fuck like with this choice of art style and like just the way it looks, the characters and the style, the character, their clothing and the setting is fine. Never understood how the fuck this became popular like in any way. Boy, that's just me. Like, I guess some people are into like really like muscle dudes that can fuck up people. I'm quite the thin guy that like really is not like the fucking like audience for that. Well, never understood how it became like this big.
And Claw the Unconquered. Dungeons & Dragons had also developed a sizable audience, and combined with the enduring popularity of The Lord of the Rings, the public's interest in fantasy inspired Hollywood to give the genre another shot. With the 1980s being all about excess, leading to an increased extravagance in every aspect of pop culture, films of the time period became more of a spectacle, featuring larger set pieces, bigger stars, and a lot more action. Some of the first fantasy
And then and then the trend never kind of changed, and it just kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like now you get, but it allowed now to actually like for us to have like this variety when it comes to cinema that like was not present back in the day. 10 years of cinema, like basically you have like your trend of cinema and you only eat the same type of genre of cinema, and there wasn't like a lot of leeways if it when it comes to cinema. Now we get that thanks to actually like the big productions that actually like opened a lot of gates by basically going bigger, going higher.
The films to be released during this era were Hawk the Slayer in 1980 and Dragon Slayer, The Archer, Excalibur, and Clash of the Titans in 1981. Seeing varying degrees of critical and commercial success, these movies had some crucial overlap that would come to define fantasy of the decade. In 1982, The Sword and the Sorcerer and Conan the Barbarian were released, and with both thriving at the box office, Hollywood went all in.
Yeah, some of Conan the Barbarian. Never understood why the will fuck like that. But it's just because it's so not my aesthetic. It's literally like I really dislike everything about it. Like the way it looks, it must be good, but it's just like I always watched this and I was like, how the fuck did you even sold one DVD of that?
On fantasy. The sword and sorcery subgenre became especially popular at this time, although I'd make the argument that if you'd seen one, you'd seen them all. These films would usually follow a morally gray warrior whose physical strength was their only weapon. Accompanied by a small group of allies, they would set off on an adventure to seek vengeance on some magic-wielding villain. In most cases, the protagonist would be an incredibly macho man, while the female characters were nothing but scantily clad set dressing. While there were some visual similarities to fantasy films of the past, I always found it interesting how the sword and sorcery genre was clearly influenced by the 1980s rock and wrestling craze, with the characters looking like medieval versions of WWE performers, complete with oiled-up biceps, shiny spandex, and over-choreographed battle sequences. Notable examples of the trend included the Beastmaster, Red Sonja, Masters of the Universe, Conquest, Hercules, Heavy Metal, Deathstalker, the Warrior and the Sorceress, and Ator the Fighting Eagle, which is honestly just the tip of the iceberg. While the genre initially saw a lot of interest, it quickly developed a less than positive reputation because of its hammy acting, formulaic storylines, and seemingly low budget, and by the end of the decade it had fizzled out entirely. In contrast were more traditional fantasy films like The Never-Ending Story, Legend, The Princess Bride, Labyrinth, Willow, Sword of the Valiant, The Dark Crystal, and Ladyhawke. Common plot points included damsels in distress, mythical creatures, dashing heroes, nervous adolescents,
and really bad rendered dragons,
grand quests, and battles between good and evil. While these films incorporated bright colors, stunning backdrops, and a good deal of sparkles, they also mixed in some slightly darker imagery, like muddy swamps, oversized rats, and absolutely terrifying villains. While the settings were as fantastical as the storylines, they'd usually be rooted in some vaguely historical context, like the Stone Age, ancient Greece, or the medieval era, time periods that had fascinated the public for centuries. They also had a habit of combining practical effects with experimental visual effects, creating an aesthetic that was artificial and uncanny, but also beautiful and mesmerizing. The darker direction fantasy took in the 1980s was even present in animation, with films like The Black Cauldron, The Secret of Nim, The Last Unicorn, Happily Ever After, and The Flight of Dragons. But unfortunately, many of them didn't perform very well at the box office, something I blame.
Is this anime? Is this anime? God damn. It's not anime, but really looking like anime.
On the growing idea that animation was just for kids, which is why many of the animated fantasy films of the 1990s, like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Hercules, The Page Master, The Swan Princess, and Thumbelina, were a lot more lighthearted. For most of the fantasy genre's history, filmmakers had gone in a more theatrical direction to tie into the absurdity of the premise, but with technological advancements of the 1990s allowing for cameras to move off sound stages and into real locations, natural visuals replaced the stylized look the genre had become known for. This meant no more loincloths, shining swords, or glowing crystal balls. While Gothic horror was thriving in the 1990s, bringing vampires and witches into the mainstream, dragons.
Yeah, so Gothic horror was thriving during the 1990s. Yeah, because there was a goth during the 1990s, kinda. The Gothic horror, it wasn't a cinema genre. It was just me walking around in the street scaring people because I was kind of like in the middle of like in the right in the right fucking like balance between scary and ugly.
Warlocks, and fairies weren't as popular, with Dragonheart, A Tale of Terror, and A Midsummer's Night's Dream being some of the few fantasy movies from the decade that actually looked magical. The kids' space was the exception, with films like Hook, A Simple Wish, Magic in the Mirror, Fairy Tale, The Adventures of Pinocchio, Cinderella, Magic Island, and Leap in Leprechauns continuing to have the bright colors and playful imagery that made the genre so appealing to begin with. You'll notice that unlike fantasy films of the past, which would typically focus on adult characters, these films had child protagonists, which might have inadvertently solidified the idea that fantasy stories were more juvenile. Now, there was one thing that was a vast improvement from the 1980s. With third-wave feminism challenging traditional gender roles, female characters were no longer relegated to being the sexy sidekick, but could actually be a major protagonist or antagonist.
Oh yeah, if can you believe that like women were so fucking was so fucking like so fucking oh my fucking discriminated against. It took like 70 to 80 years to be like, yeah, maybe the girl she can actually like fucking do cool stuff. Oh my fucking god, I hate sexist so much.
Just think about Matilda, Merlin, Anastasia, or Xena Warrior Princess, with the latter being a far cry from the sword and sorcery sex kittens that inspired her. What was great about this more feminist direction was that they didn't totally throw the male characters under the bus. It was about giving all of the characters strengths and weaknesses. In the 2000s, the fantasy genre exploded, something credited to the success of the Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings film series. Family-friendly fantasy was a big thing at the time and brought in billions of dollars, and studios made sure there was enough action for dad, romance for mom, and magic for the kids. With the Scholastic Book Fair turning a generation of children into voracious readers, Hollywood made a point of adapting popular fantasy books into films, including the Spiderwick Chronicles, Inkheart, Arthur and the Invisibles, The Chronicles of Narnia, Aragon, The Golden Compass, Nanny McPhee, Peter Pan, and Ella Enchanted. Of course, some of these adaptations fared better than others. Some darker fantasy stories intended for older audiences included The Brothers Grimm, The Fall, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, Stardust, and Pan's Labyrinth, which were loosely inspired by a variety of classic legends and folklore. You can really tell that Hollywood had more money than they knew what to do with. So while CGI became a lot more prominent than it had in other eras, they still had fun with prosthetics, practical effects, and sound stages. While I don't think there's a lot of visual overlap with fantasy films of the 1980s or 19...
So this is what I look like mostly like when I wake up, because like this is what cigarettes do to people. Do not smoke.
50s, the
Okay?
2000s were still able to overlap with
If you
fantasy
smoke,
films of the...
this is what you will look like if you keep smoking. All right? So 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 quit smoking while it's not too late.
1980s or 1950s, the 2000s were still able to capture the magic and whimsy that makes the genre so inviting. Because of the popularity of the superhero genre, action-adventure became an inescapable addition to fantasy in the 2010s, with films like Alice in Wonderland, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, Maleficent, Pan, The Nutcracker in the Four Realms, and Jack the Giant Slayer putting a larger emphasis on fighting the bad guy than their original fairy tale. Not to mention that with the popularity of the YA genre, especially The Hunger Games and Twilight, a lot of tropes popular in that space began finding their way into fantasy. Films like Red Riding Hood...
Yeah, and what she's describing right now is basically like the globalization and the free like the new wave of freedom of Hollywood. Because like right now she's basically saying and this and this and this became kind of like this and this and this. People actually fucking grew up like says this stupid sexism that like women were suffering from, girls were suffering from when it comes to cinema, which is like really like sexism in cinema when it comes to like the how badly it was like the girl doesn't get to do the cool stuff, it's only the dude. This is a summary of let's the struggle that women suffered from in the art industry for like fucking 70 years. Can you fucking believe that? It's the cool stuff you do princess stuff. Oh my fucking god. I don't want to like I'm not like someone violent, but like if I but sometimes like I'm happy to fucking know that like some sexes got beaten the fuck out.
Snow White and the Huntsman, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Mortal Instruments, and Beautiful Creatures epitomized this subgenre and included love triangles, family secrets, chosen one narratives, and adolescent subgenre.
Wait, is this the girl from
It
Twilight?
included love triangles, family.
Wait, is this Bella? Bella? Bella, what the fuck? What the fuck is this Bella? Wait, what the fuck are you not? Why are you not with Eddard? What the fuck happened? Why do you have an armor? What the fuck?
Secrets, chosen one narratives, and adolescent angst. Now, did I eat it up every single time? Absolutely. But in hindsight, it was pretty obvious that Hollywood was just cashing in on a craze. With CGI fully eclipsing practical effects by this point, a lot of these movies wound up looking overproduced, with a glossy sheen that almost veered into uncanny valley territory. I truly think there's no better example of how
So the uncanny valley is like when you create an AI or create like a human looking like humanoid looking person, but they're not like they're kind of too realistic, and because of that, it look creepy as fuck. Like just because they look too close to the fucking thing they try to copy.
much the visuals in fantasy had deteriorated than by comparing the 1981 Clash of the Titans film to its 2010 remake, or 2013's Oz the Great and Powerful.
If you want a good fucking scare, just search Uncanny Valley on Google. It's not that terrifying, but it's really like fucking like weird looking. Like you'll remember what the fuck is this if you check it out.
Compared to 1939's Wizard of Oz. You can just tell that everyone is walking around in front of a green screen and interacting with things that aren't actually there. Fourth wave feminism had a huge impact on female characters in the 2010s and 2020s, with there being a bigger focus on women's empowerment and independence than in previous decades. In theory, I have no complaints, but unfortunately in practice, it often came across as performative. Instead of creating interesting characters with nuanced motivations and realistic growth, something they'd done pretty well in the 1990s, the fantasy genre was soon overrun by dozens of generic girl bosses. Just look at the main characters in Cursed, The Princess, and Damsel, who not only have eerily similar personalities, but even look the same. To make matters worse, the vast majority of fantasy films that have been released in recent years have just been live-action remakes of far superior animated movies, and I don't know why these companies are continuing to churn them out when they've been such massive critical and commercial disappointments.
Yeah, and basically, like the reality of it is that like the sexism present and racism as well. It was like it was the same logic. White men get to do cool stuff, not people of color, not women, because white men better. And but the thing is that, like there was like some like calibration, reevaluation to this like type of art when it comes to actually like when well actually the white man lost once again because the white man is fucking cringe, because like people didn't knew exactly how to play with these new like storytelling instruments that they were given, and because of that you had like a lot of like trial and error that was done. So I understand why she is jaded and like disappointed with this type of art, but basically that was like a period of trying new genres and new story tropes, so stories basically that were not accessible before because white people suck and the white men should be burned.
Sure, in the grand scheme of things, movies might not seem like a huge deal, not when we're facing trade wars, global warming, and a long list of other crises. But as we've seen time and time again, fantasy has always been more than just entertainment. It's a way for us to imagine a better, brighter future, one that might even have a little bit of magic in it. That's exactly why I think people are so drawn to these AI-generated dark fantasy videos.
And so basically the problem was that like people tried out the fucking like new options that were given when it comes to story writing and storytelling. But the problem was that like since it was really new, they didn't got into like this idea of creating deep characters, complex characters. Nowadays it's not the problem anymore, and you can see that like they're all like a lot of like wonderful stories. I'll give you Wonder Woman when it comes to like Wonder Woman, or like actually actually Twilight, right? Like people like to despise on Twilight still did the sales, and Bella is a complicated character that people like to troll. Twilight is not my favorite like fucking like movie at all, and not even close to being like something that I like, right? But it shows that like nowadays like this girl boss and like stuff, it doesn't exist anymore, because this kind of like new wave and new options, it's already in the past, and people got the time to experiment this type of new cinema that they were finally allowed to do.
Visually, they rely heavily on the fantasy aesthetics of the 1950s and 1980s.
And also not only allowed to do, but also got the resources to do, because cinema actually became really cheaper to produce, like
Hence all the romantic lighting, strange creatures, and dreamlike landscapes. But there's also a darker, more sinister undertone that feels perfectly aligned with the relatively bleak reality that we're living through. Considering how popular these videos are, it's clear that there's still an appetite for fantasy stories, which begs the question, why isn't Hollywood making movies like this anymore? What happened to creativity? Instead of continuing the wave of glossy, CGI-heavy, desaturated blockbusters, I'd love to see a return to something a little more theatrical and magical. And don't tell me that it's not possible. The Love Witch came out in 2016, and it could fool anyone into thinking it was made in the 1960s.
yeah, I would agree with her point of view, and add like more also metaphorical, like just like more like the a symbolical type of like art that needs to come back. It's just that like it doesn't get released like quite enough. But on this, if you really if you really miss this type of art, this type of like cinema, well, try to give a go, try to give a try to anime. In anime, you can find this, and it's good quality.
There are hundreds of legends from all over the world that haven't been adapted to film yet. Why not try some of them out? And I know that Disney acts like they have dibs on all fairy tales, but considering they've been refusing to put a modicum of effort into it, I'd rather someone else give it a try. In the meantime, I'm gonna keep wishing for the return of movie magic, cause Lord knows we could all use a little more of it. I hope you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.
This was a great video talking about like actually like a great story, and let me just check what's her content like. If not for that, uh, this is interesting. Okay, so she talks about like other movies, and yeah. This was actually fucking like I'm really happy that my algorithm like got to fucking show me this video, because what the fuck, this is actually quite a fucking like a good essay. It talks about like a lot of things. It talks about history, and it talks about like the changes made, and I will agree with what she said with the name of the video. Bring back dark fantasy, you cowards! Bring it back! Why the hell not? Why the hell not? Bring it back, you fucking cowards! Anyway. Next on, what do we have? To, 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 so yeah, let's watch some Let's watch some Kigok again. Like, he has like so many like fucking good things that like you need to be fucking sure, need to be fucking loved, and blah blah blah. It's good stuff. Let's watch it. Why? The video name is Why I Love Bad Anime. Like, I am quite elitist when it comes to my anime fucking like circle. So I cannot fucking like I will tell you right away that like I cannot fucking stand bad anime. Like I cannot fucking like it doesn't have to be like an ultra production, but it gotta have something or like be interesting enough. I am done with like these fucking cliche stories that are fucking like read or like watched a billion times. But there is like a charm to some bad animes, and to be honest, like back in the day, your favorite anime, probably a bad anime, like but like it's still the best, right? Same for me. Like for me, some of my favorite childhood anime though, like I wasn't such a fucking bitch, like hateful bitch at the time. So yeah, some of my favorite like old retro anime, like childhood anime, were actually like bad anime technically. So let's check this out.
Can we all agree for a moment that anime has gotten pretty damn good? In any given season now, pretty much everyone is guaranteed to find a handful of shows that appeals to them, which are pretty good quality. I mean, this season we got My Hero, Beastars, Babylon, Hoshai no Sora, Oresuki, Cautious Hero, No Guns Life, and not forgetting Dr. Stone and Vinland Saga being carried over from last season. That's a pretty strong lineup, which just seems like the norm nowadays. So it should come as no surprise that the only shows I'm up to date and have religiously kept up with is SAO and Assassin's Pride. Wow, I didn't realize your taste was so shit, Giguk. Random commenter responds surprisingly to the man that openly endorsed domestic girlfriend. As of late, I think I've cultivated this reputation as that guy on YouTube that likes and celebrates trash.
In anime we get like just like there is like trash TV and like trash television, trash TV shows that like some people really enjoy, and good TV shows. Like we get, if you never fucking watched anime, we get the same. Like when it comes to anime, we get or seasonal and yearly trash TV shows that is like, if you want to cry a little bit and be disappointed with the world, check this one out, because like this one is so fucking like badly done, you know?
Trashy anime. I don't know how, honestly, it just kind of came out of nowhere. And today I just wanted to ramble a bit about how it got this way, why it's kind of half a meme and half actually true, and why, as counterintuitive as it sounds, you shouldn't always feel so pressured to go out and find good anime. This is Dr. Trashlove.
By the way, just a thing. If you want to watch an anime, don't fucking like try to watch it yourself. Like this is the best thing. Try to experience like storytelling by yourself. If something catched your eye, if something like catched your attention, do you know why? Because you might like it, even if everyone fucking hate it. Just and this was the advice from the dude that fucking like the fucking forgot what day it is. Okay, so yeah, try stuff by yourself, and maybe you'll find what you were searching for all along. Just because what? Just because it's for you. It was meant for you, from what viewer like you know.
Or how I learned to stop worrying and enjoy bad anime. Probably the thing I love the most about the medium of anime is just how wide and varied it is. I've been watching anime for a pretty long time now, and I've surprised even myself by how many shows I've been able to enjoy in just about every spectrum and genre, even though the main reason I got into it was just to see some big muscly dudes scream and punch the shit out of each other. Anime has provided me with such a perfect vehicle to expand my horizon and explore new facets of what I find entertaining. There have been shows that have pushed the boundaries of creativity in a way you just don't see anywhere else, and to this day I've not experienced anything like that honeymoon period when you first discovered anime. Every new show was a new experience, a new discovery about what you could find enjoyable, and
And back in the day, there was also like the fact that like we didn't like character design. So the way like the eyes and the emotions are portrayed in anime, it was like really like really something that like when you begin anime, like it was something like mind blowing how one anime looked just like the other anime, but it looked at the same time so different because of character design and choice of pastels, choice of colors, choice of style.
And the possibilities seemed endless. Through this journey, I found shows I love, shows I hate, shows that are so weird I still can't comprehend whether the emotion I felt towards them counts as enjoyment, and shows so god-awful they made me want to go home and commit isekai. But I feel there does come a point after seeing enough that you kind of get anime. You get the intricacies and the tropes, you get what makes each genre tick, you see the nuances and what makes some shows better than others. You've seen the critically acclaimed classics and understand why they are so well respected. You see what makes good anime good and bad anime bad. But
And this is actually such a fucking curse because, like, as someone who is really modest when it comes to art, I really just like good stories. I don't really give a fuck about high production or whatever the fuck. It makes you become such this fucking like a really hateful like watcher. It's like if it's not the fucking top production and if it's not the fucking like best fucking like mangaka that wrote it, I will not watch it. And you sound like a children, but it's just because like you saw all these tropes and basically it's either you don't have the time or like the interest is just like not there anymore because you watched so much good stuff, you know.
most importantly, you understand what your own tastes are. And once you reach this point, I find that people
And you
mostly
know
go
what
in
you
one
like,
of two
yeah.
directions. Either your tastes have been forever changed and you can't enjoy the same things that used to tickle your fancy, or you regress to that same bright-eyed newbie who could find the simplest cliche shit entertaining. And I remember the exact goddamn moment I realized which direction I had taken, because it was when I first watched Orimo. Major spoilers for the ending of Orimo, if you really care about that. Now, this may come as a surprise to many, but there was a time I thought I would hate Orimo, aka My Little Sister Can't Be This Cute, because it seemed weird. Back when only season 1 was out, my initial impression was mad.
Yeah, ecchi animes is something else as well. It's something that really doesn't exist. It's basically like in between it's basically the bachelor or like the dating like fucking like trash TV. But it is a story, an actual story like you next to like basically it's the bachelor with the production of Batman. And it's really like you just watch this and you're like, well, how the fuck does this works? And it's just because like at the end of the day, we're all simps. Yep. Yep. We're all simps. Vyrah still best girl of the season. Gotta tell you.
Man, I really don't want to watch some weird incest shit, but to my surprise, it turned out to be an entertaining look into otaku culture through the cynical eyes of an older brother who had no interest in it, with a brother-sister relationship that actually seemed like a brother-sister relationship. Yeah, I know hindsight is hilarious and everything, but I'm being totally serious. I got surprisingly invested in it, and then season 2 happened and the series shifted from this slice-of-life comedy to more of your typical harem anime where every girl started falling for the main character. It started to turn into everything it had previously been satirizing, which put many people off, but for some reason I was still very okay with it. And then the ending happened, and he chose his sister. And I thought to myself, man, I initially didn't want to watch this because I was afraid it was going to go this direction, and here we are now. So why the fuck am I still okay with it? This was not only the exact point when I first realized that I was a
課金具でジェネレート
but also that even though I could tell there were so many problems with the direction the show went as it started to appeal to the lowest common denominator, I still wasn't above enjoying it.
But okay, I'll say this. So when it's Games of Thrones that does it, no one gives a fuck. But when it's Rent a Girlfriend that does it, people fucking like to criticize. Right? Right? Games of Thrones, it's okay. But like Rent a Girlfriend, no? I guess we're all biased, huh? Yeah, no, I just shouldn't have done it like in Rent a Girlfriend. It was really out of line. Really like I really don't give a fuck. I haven't watched the show.
Despite the fact it went down the more generic harem route, I was secretly glad it did, even if it did have the opportunity to make a much more meaningful statement about otaku culture as a whole. And my desire to see a tsundere as the winning anime girl apparently trumped that little awkward fact that they were... you know. And once I realized this, the Giguk I knew was never the same again. I threw myself back into the dumpster I was born from and haven't found my way back out since. What I learned is that despite having...
Wait, it's the same model of dumpster I was born from. What the fuck? Maybe we're related.
Broadened my taste and gained a deeper understanding of what makes good shows good, it didn't stop me from gravitating to the same surface level shit that appealed to me as a newbie when I didn't know what bad anime was. And yeah, I know I'm using the term bad anime loosely here, but please don't worry too much about the semantics of what that actually means. People normally associate bad anime with things like using an abundance of tropes and cliches.
Oh no, no. So it was the same model of dumpster. I kind of took the time to rethink of it, but mine was on fire. So some differences. Related though with Giguk? Maybe. A case to follow.
Having one-dimensional characters, or having an uninspired story that does nothing to really push creativity or say something unique, and if you've seen enough anime, that's totally true. But I've often found myself wondering what makes certain anime such popular guilty pleasure shows. Why does something like High School DxD seem so universally loved, when on the surface it just seems like a lot of tits, and yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fucking tits. And I think it's because shows like these are so good at understanding how to appeal to a very specific target demographic, even though to anyone not
people with tits.
In that demographic, it just looks like basic fan service trash. If you like High School DxD, you know exactly why you like High School DxD, even if it's not exactly for a reason you'd gloat to your parents about. Which brings me back to Assassin's Pride. I'm just a sucker for the cliche underdog power fantasy stories, as shallow and predictable they may be. Probably because I grew up as a scrawny ass nerd who wasn't the most popular kid in school, and I can feel way more empowered here than I ever did back then, because that shit stays with you. And something like Assassin's Pride is a show that excels at scratching that very specific story itch, even if by pretty much every other standard, it's just a generic adaptation of a generic light novel with generic characters. And though I would never actively recommend this to a wide audience, there are a few aspects I can say certain people would definitely enjoy if you were looking for this type of story. This is a show that is so unapologetic in how many tropes, dumb cliches, and nonsensical developments it can ham-fist into its story, that it does this 180 and becomes this beautiful car crash you just can't help but admire. Kinda like what Era Manga Sensei did to the Yamoto genre. That's right, this is basically the Era Manga Sensei of power fantasy shows. Don't quote me on that. And you know what? It's probably this exact mentality which was the reason I found myself going through a bit of an isekai phase. Could you tell? Could you tell? I know I've helped propagate the idea that a lot of isekai look and feel exactly the same, but when you look past the surface, you can see that a lot of them actually do have their own unique appeal. And even some of the most generic looking ones can do something unique enough to retain my interest.
Yeah, it's true. And basically, like, if you try to fucking get into isekais, but the problem is that, like, it's an isekai, basically just pretend that, like, the isekai part, so being sucked out into another world because you died or got teleported or whatever the fuck the story is, just cut this part, pretend it never happened, and you can enjoy, like, and it becomes from isekai, it becomes a heroic fantasy. Yeah. Thank you so much. You can send me $1 billion on my fucking on my fucking Twitch channel for this advice, and and for like the couple families and couples that I saved. No, it's my duty to help, so no need to thank me.
The reason I ended up finishing Kenja no Mago a few seasons ago, despite trashing how uninspired it felt, was because I kind of found it interesting that the reason the protagonist was OP was because he was the only person with knowledge of science from our world, so he managed to apply this to the magic systems in a way no one else could really comprehend. The spacing marriage of science and magic was a subtle enough difference that I could still find enjoyment sitting through the exact same story beats I'd seen a million times before. Sure, that's not exactly a big enough reason to convince anyone who doesn't like isekai to watch it, but it was enough for me. And I'm guessing it's this reason why isekai is still thriving despite the perception that a lot of it just feels the fucking same. This is what it means.
It's also because like these days, like there's a lot of like so Every day there's a new anime fan that is born, and they get to discover isekais before they understand what the fuck is an isekai and why the fuck people hate them. So basically, I'm pretty sure that's why it's so popular now.
To be isekai trash. For some, the final form of an anime fan is being able to recognize and appreciate truly great shows with the ability to quantify what makes them so special. But for me, it's being able to do that, but also knowing you can make a 4-hour rant breaking down why this trashy anime sucks ass, yet still being able to enjoy it despite of that. And I can respect any person who has that ability. Okay, congratulations, Giguk. It took you years to discover that you do actually have shit taste.
One thing that it didn't mention, but it kind of did with like Rent a Girlfriend, is that like these like low quality storytelling type of anime sometimes take liberties with like Bunny Girl Senpai, for example. So take some liberties when it comes to storytelling, and you're not stuck in your fucking like basically all age, like recycled formula, basically, when it comes to storytelling. It's still bad, but at least they do some artistic liberty when it comes to the story that makes it a lot special, and that makes it like not like being like a little different from like everything that you watch.
So what exactly made you feel like telling everyone about this? So like I was saying, I feel anime is good right now. Like, pretty fucking good. I don't think there's ever been a time in my fandom when I've literally had seasons I couldn't keep up with all the shows that sounded interesting. Yet, I don't know if I've been the only one who's recently gone through this phase when I was so paranoid that I was wasting my time when watching a new show. Is this really what I'm in the mood to do right now? Is this the best show I could be watching at this exact moment? Is this the best way I could be spending my time? Instead of just trying to get absorbed in the experience, I was worried that there was something new or better I could be watching, that I would constantly be second guessing if I had made the right choice to watch it. And I think this is less to do with having watched too many anime and more with just how much choice there is nowadays. Have any of you ever wanted to chill after a hard day's work and then gotten fucking decision fatigue just scrolling down your Netflix or Steam library and spent more time deciding what you want to do instead of, you know, actually doing something? Oh my god, why is there just nothing to watch?
Yeah, this is like choice paralysis, but also yeah, like, and you start watching an anime, and like there was like there's a point where it's just like you either like keep watching new stuff, or you become like rewatching Andy, basically like someone that rewatches the same TV shows every year. Because they give up on fucking trying to understand what the fuck to watch, and so we're like, this is good. I'll just watch this until I die.
This is how I felt scrolling down the seasonal chart sometimes. I honestly think we've been spoilt with not just the amount of choices, but the amount of good choices we have. And it doesn't help that I have this irrational fear of missing out. So I found this huge problem for me when I first entered the seasonal cycle is that I would find myself watching shows I wasn't in the mood for, but did so anyway in fear of falling behind or missing out on something good, which made me just enjoy everything less. And it remained this way until I fully accepted that I'm never in my life gonna be able to catch up to everything I want to, and the reason that took me so long to realize is because it didn't always feel this way. Okay, so small little tangent. I have a confession to make. I have not seen Full Metal Alchemist, original or Brotherhood. I know, just hear me out. So there was a time
The legend of like, so basically the legend is that like Gigak never watched it and chose to never watch it, and will watch it will watch Full Metal Alchemist someday. This is the legend of Gigak. This is why this dude is such a legend. This is why this dude is such a god. Like, he has us this story, and yeah, like maybe someday I'll watch it. Maybe you never will. We don't know.
Time when I legitimately thought I would run out of good anime. Like, that was a genuine fear after watching a few hundred shows that there was this finite pool of anime I would enjoy, and I was nearing the end of the road. I was finding less and less shows that really appealed to what I was looking for, and newer shows just didn't excite me as much. I was scared that there would be a day where I lost this passion for this medium, so I took Full Metal Alchemist, a show I knew I would love, I knew I would get obsessed with, and shelved it. Purposely didn't watch it, saving it for a day when there was no new good anime coming out and I needed a reason to regain faith in the medium. This was complete bullshit, of course. Now, not only did that day never come, but at the point we're at now, I don't have the problem of worrying that I'm gonna run out of good anime. I have the problem of finding enough time to watch all the good anime out there. And now I have a whole Patreon Discord server's worth of people who just pay me so they can hurl abuse at me for depriving myself of one of the most basic and most well-respected anime. Hey guys, how you doing?
Go watch Fullmetal Alchemist now, you fucking scrub! Fuck you!
Right now, there will always be something good to watch. Your plan to watch list is an endless abyss that you will never reach the bottom of, and will only continue to grow with every season, and that's only if you watch anime. That doesn't include games, movies, or books, which by themselves have exactly the same problem. And I think this is why for a while, bad anime became infinitely easier to watch. There was comfort in the predictable and familiar, with the knowledge that I wouldn't have to invest or challenge myself too much as opposed to loading an episode of a show that was actually good. It's the same reason why sometimes a 20-minute anime episode sounds like a massive investment, yet somehow I have no problem clicking on an hour-long Mario Sunshine speedrun that I'll just put on in the background while I do something. Holy fucking shit, I'm 30 minutes in and I've just sat here watching it all. Well, now that I'm this far in, might as well watch another 30 minutes. I truly value finding anime that gives me new experiences, great storytelling, unique ideas, and just losing myself in a show. And if you're getting into this medium as well, I implore you to go out of your comfort zone because you'll probably discover something completely new you had no idea you'd like. But there are also times when I just want to shut my brain off and watch some black-haired generic Kirito-looking main character overpower a bunch of dudes. Once you accept that you won't be able to see everything, you start feeling less overwhelmed and anxious about optimizing how to spend your free time and just doing things you actually.
Yeah, and this is a problem when you actually have fucking schedule watching what anime. But look at us, like fucking anime like fans. We're like, oh no, there's so many good animes this season that I actually fucking need to schedule it. I actually need to arrange my life to be able to enjoy this medium of art because there is so many good stuff happening. Oh no. Oh no, can you give me my like sad mug with like my sad the fucking like sad meal that you buy when you're sad at McDonald's? Oh my fucking god. Like it is like it's funny that we're like it is that we're so pathetic, but it's true. So much good stuff. I don't know what to do with that. Fucking like, and then the season fucking finishes. Even more good stuff. Fucking shut the fuck up. I only have 24 hours a day. Leave me alone with your good art. Leave me alone and don't fucking promote it this well because I'll fucking like take a day off to fucking like just watch it. So fuck off. You know?
Actually feel like, because let's be honest, you're always going to be behind. You're always going to have another anime you have to watch or another game you have to play, and once you get around to finally finishing that show,
and I'll fucking enjoy the day off that I fucking take to watch your fucking anime. But fuck you! There's too many of them!
there are 10 more that have been added to your list in the time you took to finish it. So if it's gonna be like that anyway, fuck it. Give me those big titty anime girls thirsting over Nathan no personality. Let me relax to another mindless isekai in between my viewings of Legends of the Galactic Heroes. Hey, maybe even give that old anime a rewatch instead of isekai in between my anime girls thirsting over Nathan no personality.
Never saw this anime. Will probably never watch it. But the serpent girl from this anime, that's great.
Let me relax to another mindless isekai in between my viewings of Legends of the Galactic Heroes. Hey, maybe even give that old anime a rewatch instead of feeling pressure to always have to watch something new. There's too much shit out there right now for you to be doing something you don't enjoy, and the last thing you should be doing is stressing over your fucking entertainment. I guess all I'm trying to say is, guys, don't worry. I'll watch Fullmetal Alchemist one day. Seriously. Let me just watch a bit more of SAO though, and maybe finish Assassin's Pride. Alright, and just one more isekai.
I just realized that I basically made this whole video to tell you that I have shit taste, but you probably already knew that. I mean, like, a shit taste like that must be talked about, you know? It's actually like well, if you're this passionate, it's not even like that's that much of a shit taste, bro. Like I used to love like Lovina. I watched it when I was a childhood anime favorite childhood like shoujo, Aram. I rewatched it. I was I was like, what the how the fuck did I even like that? You know, like so yeah. Anyway, so this is why I love bad anime by the legend himself, Giga. Like, fucking sub to this guy. Give this man a good $1 trillion. He deserve it. All right. Okay. I have like another one. Another one. Um. Okay. I'm kind of curious about this one. This one, firearm expert. So I never fucking played CS:GO, and I'll never fucking play CS:GO because my aim is so bad. I might log in into fucking CS:GO, try to shoot for an enemy and kill an actual civilian outside by accident just because I am so bad at aiming. Like, don't believe me, happened more than once and I got arrested, so I don't care. It's anyway. So this dude compares like the fire guns, or talk about the fire guns from CS:GO. Uh, let's check this out. Like I'll fucking know.
This is
Oh, by the way, let me check if the stream is still my voice. Okay, everything is working. Then everything kind of nice, mega nice.
Jonathan Ferguson, the keeper of firearms and artillery at the Royal Army's Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And today, he's getting all nostalgic looking at the weapons of Valve's iconic shooter franchise, Counter-Strike.
Wow, the ultimate tribute, getting sprayed on the wall in a Counter-Strike game.
If there are any other games, guns, and mechanics that you guys want to see Jonathan break down, let us know in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe for more videos just like this, and if you'd like to help out the Royal Army's Museum and continue to support Jonathan's work, check out the links in the description of this video. Right, over to Jonathan.
And if you don't want to fucking support any of that because you're just like just a jerk and just a bad person, well, you get the chance to not fucking do any of what they offered you to offered you the chance to do. No cap.
Pause there. The deagle. Nature's beautiful deagle. Correct me if I'm wrong, comment section, but I'm pretty sure that's where the contraction deagle originated. I have got one here. So this is, of course, absolutely iconic by the time Counter-Strike was conceived of as the ultimate action movie handgun. Counter-Strike did quite a good job for the time, the original graphics, at representing that. All the angles on it are a little bit rounded off. I don't know if they were showing off how many polygons they had, but the Desert Eagle, the real one, is famously extremely angular, and for me, the model in the game is quite rounded. There's also a symptom of something that I think we'll see certainly throughout all the original Counter-Strike guns, which is that as soon as you hit reload, the slide magically locks itself open. Of course, there's no reason why that would happen, and that's just a shortcut in the reload animation, where it's cutting straight to the slide lock reload, as we would call it. You know, I remember I played a lot of Counter.
Yeah, so basically when you I'm not sure. Yeah, this goes on YouTube. So when you are using the gun, right? Let's say that this is a, let's say that, let's let's say that. Find something that looks like this looks close enough to the gun. So let's say that this is a gun. This is the trigger, and basically this like recharge. When you actually like, so when you actually like fucking like put so this thing goes downwards, you need to press a little button, like you need to press a gear, and then it goes, the blowback basically goes back into the gun. It's not, it doesn't fucking happen when you fucking put the ammo back. Like it doesn't fucking functions when you put, how is this called, like the fucking the reload, the ammunition back.
Counter-Strike beta back in the day. Probably one of the few games where I did use the Desert Eagle by choice. This is like some sort of reminiscence therapy for me. It's that long ago that I played Counter-Strike. So the Arctic Warfare, the Accuracy International, bolt action sniper rifle. I think this is meant to be the Magnum, so 300 Win Mag or 338. The glaring thing here, which we'll see with a lot of other models, I'm sure, is the left-handed arrangement. Now, a very helpful viewer contacted me after a previous video that we did on Bad Company 2, where I commented on the left-hand ejection of the guns in that game and how that used to annoy me. I had completely forgotten that in, well, all versions of Counter-Strike, the guns are, if you have them right-handed, they're mirrored. And I wasn't even aware that this was the issue. I just thought, oh, for some reason they've modelled everything on the left-hand side. It must be so you can see the cartridge cases flying. And, well, I'm not so sure about that theory now, because it turns out the developer, the original developer of Counter-Strike, was left-handed and modelled everything in the game to be shown left-handed, and therefore with the ejection port and the bolt handle and all of that on the right-hand side where it should be. But because most players...
So basically, I'll show you just real quick, but it's so why right-handed or left-handed actually like is important when it comes to guns. Okay, I will tell you why.
All of that.
So check this out. So look at this part of the gun, right?
On the right.
Did you saw the bullet? Like the bullet, like basically like what's left of the bullet that fell. You know why you fucking like do not do that as a left-hander? Because basically this thing is burning hot. Like the shell of the bullet is burning hot, and basically you need this this shell to be like, to not actually like risk falling onto you, because it can burn your jeans, it can leave you, like a bullet shell empty, like that just got fired, can fucking burn your arm, bro. And so this is why, like, basically, you know, like let me take my fucking like thing that looks like a gun, you know, like people shooting like this in video, like in real life. Well, technically you're supposed to shoot like this, and so the bullet shell, it goes here. You know, I know one fucking does this, because the bullet shell, it does this and it does this, and you look like the fucking dumbest moron ever, because this type of burns, it's not fucking like, it's not fucking you burned yourself on a cigarette or something, bro. It's metal. It makes your fucking like skin melt right away. So that's why the people with Kalashnikovs that like aim like this, right? No, you don't do that, bro. Like, you don't fucking do that, because you don't want to fucking injure your fucking arms or hands. And it's the same with the fucking, like, you wanna go gangsta. Well, yeah, like, gangsters are gangster for a reason, bro. Like, because they risk, just to look cool, they risk themselves fucking 5-degree burns and fucking to go to the hospital, because they just wanted to look cool, okay? But like, basically, like, and when it comes to like logic, so basically, like, if you're usually on assault rifles, basically your assault rifles, it's so realistic, this replica of like a fire weapon, basically usually the cell opening case goes left. So if you're like this, technically you aim like this, right? Or you aim close, basically you aim in many different positions, right? and basically like if it is close to your shoulder, like you risk to burn your whatever the fuck you're wearing or yourself. And this is why, like, if the shell goes here, you aim it like this, so the shell always go far away from you. That is dumb logic, but like if you don't know, it's really like you really wouldn't understand why the fuck this dude got triggered and offended because of like just it's the choice of like the fucking like right hand left hand weapon in a video game.
Hand side where it should be, but because most players are right-handed, the game would be set up with the gun modelled on the right side, but to do that they had to flip the image. So you end up with all your guns the wrong way round. Yeah, so a fascinating bit of video game history there. So thank you, Jan, for messaging me about that. So we've got the Steyr Mannlicher TMP. I'm not sure the suppressor's modelled very well. It's a bit small and seems sort of stuck on the end. The real TMP has this very large barrel jacket, which is then threaded on the outside for a suppressor. It's not a bad model for the era, I suppose. It's a little bit blocky, of course. The rate of fire seems about right. The really weird thing, of course, is the report. This thing sounds like some sort of ray gun. It is almost literally going pew pew pew. I've not been paying attention, but I think our capacities are a little bit off. I know from having played a lot of the early game and some of the history I've read that this was a classic for game balancing. So if you see like an 18 round capacity where it should be 20 or even less, it's because they started out with a full mag and they've just removed rounds to make it have the reload animation kick in sooner and balance what would otherwise be an overpowered gun.
This is interesting.
So I'm not sure I remember, or didn't remember this being in the game until I saw the gameplay clip, and it all, or some of it at least, flooded back to me. And so I've looked at this many times over the years in our collection and not made the connection that this was a Counter-Strike gun, so that's quite nice. It's a 22-inch barrel, so relatively short for a long-range rifle, and that's because this was a concept. It's a bit debatable today as to whether this still has a niche, but these are still made as far as I know, and there are one or two others out there. An unusual looking rifle, which is probably why it was selected for the game. We're looking at a 10 round capacity in the game. Well, this mag's 5 rounds, but there is a 10 round extended mag available, and I think the game model does depict that with all of about 3 polygons. Something that the game cannot depict is the funky built-in bipod. So the front bit of the handguard pivots down to give you a quick deploy bipod that doesn't get in the way, doesn't add any extra weight. A really neat idea. And of course, like so many Counter-Strike guns, it is in fact mirrored the wrong way round. I'll try not to harp on that too much because we know the reasons why now. Now this pistol I do fondly remember from OG Counter-Strike days. I don't think I ever played Source, which I think is the version we're watching here, but a lot of stuff carried over, including the 92s, 92Gs I think they are in the game. Now the dual wield thing, of course, that needs to be dealt with. It's not something that I think you would ever do unless, I don't know, some sort of emergency situation where you're on your own in very tight quarters and you happen to have two pistols and you've got one chance to put as much fire as you can on the enemy. You might fire away with two pistols. So it can be done, and if you are somewhat ambidextrous, well, if you're not, you can't do it. But if you are, you have a chance. So now my preference in gaming generally is I'll try a bit of dual wield just for the fun of it, but I'll typically revert to just using one at a time. Oh dear, pause there. Wow, the ultimate tribute, getting sprayed on the wall in a Counter-Strike game. The depictions of the UMP, this one included, maybe I'm reading into it, but it looks like they're like there are bright marks on the side of the receiver, like the receiver's made of some sort of metal. Now, the UMP is extremely lightweight, relies a great deal on glass reinforced polymer, just like a Glock frame, but it's throughout the gun. With these relatively early graphics, I don't think we ever really get the sense of it being a different material than the other guns. Maybe it's more of an imitation in graphics than a mistake, but that's just my impression. Gameplay terms, a harder hitting, slower firing submachine gun offers a bit of variety, so it does fit.
Oh, this is interesting because technically, like, weapons like this in real life and military, you technically never use them. So you see the high machinery, like you play in Valorant and stuff. Like, I'm actually curious to know what the fuck he thinks about it, because like technically this stuff you do not really use that. You technically can use it. Do you know where do you use it? On top of a fucking like military jeep, bro. Like you don't walk around with this in your hands for mostly particular reason, mostly because a lot of assault weapons and just like uh just weapons are just better. Like they're just better, and you don't look goofy walking around because like because you look like fucking Rambo looking like trying to fucking. But these guns are not used in the military, at least from my knowing, unless it's like on top of like a jeep, an helicopter. Like why would you when you have a fucking M16 that's fucking like is just better in every way?
Right, we're well past my era of Counter-Strike now, although I did download and try Counter-Strike Go. I was surprised to see the Negev make an appearance, because if you get a light machine gun of that nature, 5.56 light machine gun in a game, it's usually the Minimi. It seems it's a bit too portable, but then that's fair to say of all machine guns in first-person shooters, is that they seem to be a bit too much like assault rifles.
Yeah, exactly, too portable, because like the difference in weight, you don't see it. A bullet is kind of heavy in real life. Do you understand that, like, there's more than 13 bullets in it? Like, there's like 200. Do you understand? Like 200 bullets, like it's quite heavy as fuck, and you just don't fucking like do your jogging with a fucking like with a fucking suppression weapons. Like basically these weapons are considered suppression weapons because basically you just bombard certain zones, right? From an helicopter, a jeep, or something, and you just like light up. So you start firing at a dangerous zone. So the people fucking, so people that are like in the zone are forced to go back to in cover, and it allows for military progress. So military like geographical progress. So basically, imagine you're on a map, there's a bunker, right? And basically you use this type of weapon, you fire on the fucking bunker for 5 fucking minutes. And basically the bunker, because of that, people in the bunker, they have to hide and they cannot fucking shoot back because of the suppression shots that you do. And thanks to that, a troop like a battalion troop like basically can go safely through like a zone that is like technically like covered or defended by a bunker. These are like the real use of these weapons. Technically, there are many uses, but like this is one that I find really interesting.
Rifles. I think we've covered that before on the series. Having said that, though, it is relatively light for a 5.56 machine gun. But what we see is the player's having to switch to his knife constantly so that he's not encumbered by the machine gun. And I don't need to tell anyone at home that's not how life works. So you'd have to, of course, throw the machine gun away or hand it to an assistant or something, I don't know, and then run around with your knife and then get hold of another gun somewhere. You're gaming the system, of course.
Watch some Gen Z fucking dude watch this video and fucking tell the dude I can do that with a fucking machine gun, and then watch him do like the Fortnite dance with a fucking like a mini gun, just running around bunny hopping.
by doing that, because it's almost like in a first-person shooter, if the weapon's not equipped, it's not on you. If you take a step back from your gaming head and just watch people running around, it does strike you as a bit odd that, oh, suddenly he's running faster, but he's still carrying the same weight. Another sort of early 2000s favourite, the FNP90. So this version is depicted with iron sights on the rail. Now the versions we've got have a sight-through set of iron sights built into that rail, so you can either put an optical sight on top of the rail, or you just peer through the block of metal that is the sight. I very much doubt the developers, the modelers, had access to a real P90 to check that. Quite possibly didn't even care. Not something you'd see from reference images. So most in-game guns, even today, are modelled from reference images. Right away, though, my eyes locked straight onto that iconic magazine on top of the gun, and at first I thought, oh, it's some weird opaque magazine that doesn't show the rounds, but it does show those transverse rounds, which as I'm sure you know, move to the rear, and there's a very clever rotary follower in the mag that rotates them and then pushes them into the weapon. We don't see any of that action happening. It's a solid, or rather it's a flat texture that doesn't do anything. Dealing here with a relatively basic game by modern standards, and it's not alone in older games in depicting the P90 without showing you the rounds moving. And as far as models go, it looks fine when it's static, but when it's firing, nothing's moving.
So what I find like a little sad is that like it doesn't compare like the recoil, the real recoil of weapons compared to their like Counter-Strike video game counterparts. Like it will have been fun to hear like what is the actual recoil for like some of these weapons, making them like usable or not in these situations. But anyway.
Things have moved on by this point, so we're still in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. The weapons are modelled much more accurately, with a lot more detail. We're no longer ejecting to the wrong side of the weapon, and we've got some updated stuff from later in the 2000s, and one of those bits of kit is the FN Scar, and the Mark 20 is kind of, as I say, on the top end of a DMR, bottom end of a sniper rifle, and it looks cool. It embraces that desert tan aesthetic that modern firearms have adopted, partly in recognition, or in large part in recognition of the fact that black is actually not a great colour for a firearm. It tends to stick out quite a lot against camouflage clothing, against the environment. Solid black is not what you want, which is why from at least the Second World War onwards people were camming up their weapons. So it tells us a little bit about the era that this version of the game was produced in, and it's not a bad depiction for, this is not milsim, this is a competitive first person shooter. And my first thought there is that was a hell of a long-range shot. A, for a video game shotgun, because they're notoriously short-ranged, with a massive amount of scatter.
Yeah, so in real life, shotguns, you can basically be a sniper with it. It's not a fucking like a zombie shotgun. It doesn't spray like this. It sprays like this over 100 meters or 200 meters. Sprays like this and then like this, right? Not like, it doesn't sprays like this. What sprays like this are claymores. Way different. Claymores are basically mines. Basically a claymore is basically a mine that in video games, mines are like the thing that like you put on the ground like this. Claymores are a thing that like you put on the ground like this, and basically you walk to it and it just explodes with like a lot of like goodies and Easter presents, and also like the late Christmas presents that were forgotten by Santa Claus.
And B, that's a hell of a shot for a weapon with no stock, with a very short barrel. So it's kind of like from the sort of real world perspective, you would struggle to achieve that, and even from the video game perspective, you wouldn't expect to be able to achieve that. So that one took me by surprise. It's the Mag 7, which is just a really wacky pistol shotgun shotgun effectively from South Africa. Now the thing about these sort of South African funnies, as you might call them, is, and it's absolute ingenious design that's gone into a lot of them, but a lot of them are of questionable utility outside of, I suspect, what most of them are designed for, which is defense of property. So lots of firepower at close range. You hopefully won't need it, but if you do, there's a lot of firepower on hand. So they don't really lend themselves to military or even police adoption, and this one certainly didn't. Oh, this is like some sort of haunting, some sort of ghost from my past. I remember as a student lurking the forums for Counter-Strike and seeing a new animation for the M4, and the player character yanks on the forward assist to chamber around, and instantly I was on there with a comment saying that's not correct, and I had convinced myself that they had fixed that, but in whatever version of the original game this is, they haven't. Wow, I didn't think I'd see that again. So, to be clear, it's the bit at the back that looks like a bar behind the carrying handle is what you're supposed to pull on to cock an AR-15, M16, M4. Why am I talking about it? Well, I can show you. So the way the gun's supposed to work, now bearing in mind everything's on the wrong side because we're back to left-handed but flipped, and you're supposed to pull on this to cock the weapon. What you're not supposed to do is pull on this, because it doesn't do anything.
So basically, yeah, is it just wanted to make it look cool?
What this is a forward assist, which assists the bolt forward. That's why it's called that. Right, we've moved.
Let me just check out. I just want to check out if my ex-girlfriend left me no messages. She did. She didn't. She will never text me ever again. But like, just a joke that like I have with myself that she might. In which like I check anyway. Sorry.
We've advanced into the source engine, and the M4's looking better, but we've carried over another quirk from the original game. I don't really know where this has come from. This is the dust cover. It covers the gun from dust, or the bolt, and whenever you cock the rifle, it springs open. What Counter-Strike does, for no reason at all, is flap this thing open and shut. Now, it's possible that they have seen a machine gun, I can't think of a type that does this, but they do exist, where there is a dust cover that sort of opens and shuts, but it's more just loose and is flapping in the breeze kind of thing. This is sprung. It's held flat against the side, doesn't appreciably move when you shoot the weapon, so that's a weird one. It's not a bad depiction of an M4, apart from those annoying technical details. Right, another slight frustration. We've moved on. We've got the bolt release being used to chamber around after a reload. Unfortunately, that's done regardless of when you reload. So if you were to fire half a magazine, replace it with a fresh magazine, you just have to pull the trigger. You don't need to do anything else. I tend to think in eras. We're in an era where developers of a game like this aren't putting in quite the same attention to detail for, I guess, fans of military hardware. It's to do with how...
Yeah. Some fucking nerds like are not like fucking putting like the details for fan of military hardware. Back in the days, they didn't even thought that they will sell to someone that is like to someone that is older than fucking 15 years old. So we are far from trying to fucking please the fans of military hardware, you know?
How much you value gameplay versus how much you value technical detail. And just like in the movies, it's just slide your scale where you like, because you won't have time to do both of those to the best of your ability. Not without years, and yeah, I guess potentially money does come in as well. That's a really interesting bit of evolution there. First, the original Counter-Strike model, very low poly, no real moving parts. Here's one I prepared earlier. So we're talking, of course, about the Kalashnikov assault rifle. The dust cover selector here.
Good old
that
AK
model is literally
47.
just a flat part of the texture of that bit of the receiver. Way lower detail, and it's the earlier machined receiver AK, just the plain old AK, often called the AK-47. In contrast to that super simple early model, the source version, although it's still on the wrong side, we now have that moving safety selector. The bolt is coming back and forth, and there's so much more detail. Like the cocking handle looks the right shape, the contour of the bolt is there. The first model had this weird, like, square cocking handle, like they just slapped a couple of polygons on there and forgot to change their shape. Not knocking it, it's a very early and kind of grassroots developed game, so that's not a criticism, it's just a reflection of the period it was made in. So as is usually the case, the capabilities of the weapon aren't badly done, so the rate of fire is about right, the sound is okay for the period. I'm noticing some fairly pronounced recoil, obviously with the crosshairs that diverge to indicate likely dispersion, and you get muzzle climb. That's pretty fair. This is an amazing piece of industrial design, among other things, but the considerable mass of the bolt carrier and the big long piston that lives in here, and to some extent the recoil energy just of the cartridge, which is higher than something like 5.56, all contribute to quite a bit of muzzle rise and quite a bit of felt recoil. It's not a lot of recoil, but you know you've fired it, more so than something like an AR-15. So they're doing their best to reflect that, I think. Finally, we've got the last of the three eras of Counter-Strike, if you like. So 2012? We've moved on to the AKM, specifically the AKM-N, because it has the side rail for, and I think it's a coincidence, but the N stands for night, as in night sights. So that's a legitimate variant. So if anyone's looking at that and thinking, what's that gubbins on the left-hand side, that's legit. And of course the graphics have come on massively since the previous games. Way more detail, way more fidelity as to the real world gun. It sort of handles and moves around on the screen more convincingly. It's kind of a bit intangible, but it just looks, they've tried to keep pace with developments in modern shooters, and done a good job for even that is quite a few years ago now. Please do come and visit us if you're in the UK, or in the future if you're able to visit the UK, at our Leeds Museum, the Royal Armouries Museum. We've got Fort Nelson down on the south coast.
Yeah, visit museums, you fucking nerds. Stop watching these fucking videos and get off YouTube and do it for all the people that will never fucking do it because we're too lazy. Go to museums or whatever. Fuck, do the normal stuff people do. That's actually like this was like cool, interesting video. Really sad that like he didn't talked about the recoils. Like what actually will have, like I was curious is the recoil, because like a lot of weapons basically really fancy, really cool looking. Hey bro, like with the recoil like this, you do not shoot the way you want. You have to actually like fucking like some weapons you need to fucking, you don't take training, but you need to take like a couple weeks to fucking get used to the fucking recoil on your fucking shoulder each time you fucking pull the trigger. You get me? So yeah, but good video. GameSpot we're on the spot. Subscribe, like, it's a small indie company. Let's try to do their best to fucking like get a couple likes, a couple views. Okay, so yeah. Anyway. Okay. There's like one fucking like last thing that I want to watch, and it is actually like a small trailer. Let's finish by a fucking trailer. Can you believe that? Like people still releasing games in 2025. Like there's trailers and stuff, like fancy stuff. Like I'm surprised as well. So I learned that like not too long ago.
You were right.
So this is the official trailer for Covenant. I do not know if it's good or not. I don't know what the fuck is the Covenant, but I know what the Covenant is, and I really like Halo. Anyway, so Covenant. Let's check this out. It doesn't take much long. All right.
You were right. The winds are changing. They've grown dissonant.
It was the 77th year. Dawn of the Composer War.
Okay, this is interesting looking.
Of Malak's fall. And my eyes adapted to the dark.
A great sword guards the city, and it faces every way.
Another bird falls from its nest. Then come and let us have words. 100 kingdoms could not stop what is coming.
If you do this, you shall never see rest, save to strip the dead.
So be it.
Belial, the villain. He does not come but to kill, steal, and destroy. His burden is now yours.
Okay, so this is kind of like looking. This is looking interesting. So it's in between like Elden Ring with some like I don't fucking know, like some Valorant type of Valorant like type of like fast shooter, fast fighting type of stuff. Maybe some dungeon like looking stuff. I don't know what to tell you. Like interesting enough. Maybe if there's like more to it, I'll check it out. Like, but yeah, I guess if there is like more to it, I'll check it out. Interesting architecture. Like I like the art direction on this one. But like, does this make a good game? It can, but like usually it's not enough. So we'll see. All right. Okay, so I have been like streaming for some time already. So this is it for the fucking React stream for the day. So I'll see you later. And as always, be toxic.